if you're on.
Dr. Moffitt, we let YouTube know that we are restarting the feed and that they can go back to the Zoom, so we'll communicate that with them.
Gotcha.
Thank you, Dr. Moffitt.
Are we ready, Rob? Oh, not yet, not yet. Yeah, we're getting there. We are good to go, Miss Emily. You have the floor for 2 minutes.
Thank you. Good evening, board members. Good evening, Superintendent Murphy, and also our treasurer, Mike Guston. I'm here, my name is Emily Bell, and I am the president of ASME Local 232. I'm here to ask that the vote be rescinded that was voted on at the prior meeting, and also asking that there be a property tax levy put on the ballot. Our children are important to us. We believe our children, we believe in our children, we believe in our district, and we believe in our communities. We know it is difficult to make decisions, and it takes courage to make decisions because of the effect it may have on others. Please believe in our children. And when I use the word believe is be able to make a decision. Express it in action. Let everyone know. Insist that it is done. Encourage others to believe. Value our children. Excellence comes when you believe in them. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We have Clayton Adams.
Good evening, President Craig, Superintendent Murphy, members of the board, and Treasurer Guston. For those who do not know me, my name is Clayton Adams, and I am the Vice President of Organizing for the Cincinnati Federation of Teachers. This past week has been quite a challenge for those of us within the CPS community, and it's the direct result of the actions or lack thereof of this school board. As educators, we regularly challenge our students to think critically by asking questions that begin with the word why. Those questions encourage deeper thinking, reflection, and accountability. Tonight, I have several why questions for this board, and I don't claim to have all the answers, but I believe these are questions that deserve to be asked in a public forum. Why did this board delay a levy vote to the 11th hour and continue to kick the can down the road for months without any action? Why and how did this board determine an earned income tax levy would be more palatable to the CPS community than a property tax? At last week's board meeting, why did one board member continuously pressure the superintendent to speak on behalf of the teachers and their union? That was inappropriate and confusing. Why does this board continue to operate in a realm of chaos and indecisiveness? Why does it seem like this board has little appetite to work hand in hand and collaborate with the teachers in this district? Teachers are the experts, and frankly, it has become extremely clear that this board needs advice and input from the teachers. Why did this board, in the dead of summer, decide to furlough thousands of K-12 employees, which has no legal precedent in the state of Ohio? This particular action has significantly weakened morale across the district because many employees feel like this is wage theft. There are many more why questions I would like to ask, but my 2 minutes are almost up. I urge you to vote tonight for a property tax levy, and our students and the staff of this district deserve better from this school board. Thank you.
Thank you. We now have Brad Smith.
Good evening, Board of Education. My name is Brad Smith. I'm a CFT field rep. I am a constituent, and I'm a taxpayer. Seems to me that some on this board want to purposely tank CPS in order to privatize and charterize it. It's why they've engaged in tactics of delay, even though our students deserve better. These board members work with school board partners, well-known privatizers, and invite them in our district to advise our policies. They meet regularly with the business community in order to get their orders. That same business community is funding an organization that is promoting privatization, charterization, and that happens to be run by a spouse of one of the board members. The advisory committee to the strategic plan was stacked with privatizers, many of which don't even live in our district. In fact, there's a secret strategic plan right here that's not been shared or presented to the public, and it's very different from what's been shown in public. There's an interesting slide in this secret strategic plan. It's on page 7. It says that 56 of our schools basically have 90 to 100% of their students that are economically disadvantaged. I guess our business community doesn't pay our parents very well. That contributes to the struggles that our students face. The business community is all in on IDEA Charter School in Price Hill. Of their third grade students, 20% are proficient in ELA, 31% proficient in math. Meanwhile, the schools that surround IDA, Reese Price, Carson, Roberts, Euler, all score 10 to 36 points more than IDEA charter schools. Of the 43 charter schools that supposedly replace CPS, one performs better than CPS and 80% perform worse. Why aren't we investing in the success in Reese Price, Carson, Roberts, and Euler? Why are we listening to the privatizers who consistently deliver worse results? What's the point of a strategic plan if we don't have any money to implement it? I can't stand it. I know you planned it. Stop the sabotage of CPS and vote to put a property tax on the ballot.
Thank you. And next we have Karen Imbus.
Dr. Moffitt. Dr. Moffitt. Dr. Moffitt. Before we begin, can I make just a quick announcement for Zoom participants? Zoom participants, if you'd like to speak during the speaking of the public part of this session, please raise your hand and click the hand icon. We will invite you over after the speaking of the public in the room. Thank you so much.
Seeing a quorum of voting members, I call to order the August
Karen, you have
3rd,
the floor.
2026
We
Cincinnati School
ready,
Board
Rob?
meeting. Please stand for
2 minutes. You're ready.
Good evening, President Craig and members of the board. My name is Karen Imbus. I'm a Cincinnati Federation of Teachers field representative and the parent of 3 adult daughters who received an excellent education in CPS. For several months, CFT has been pleading with the board to put a property tax levy on the ballot. We have endured excuses, hand-wringing, and obfuscation, when what we need is clarity, leadership, and decisiveness. Please provide the clarity and leadership we need by supporting property tax levy tonight. We understand that your job is difficult. We know that the state legislature has systematically gutted education. We know, as you know, that the only viable path forward is to put a levy on the ballot. Without it, this district will be condemned to a relentless downward spiral of cuts. Unfortunately, some members of the board can't seem to find it difficult to acknowledge the successes of the district, and there are successes. For instance, Bellwether's update to the advisory committee on the strategic plan includes a chart that shows CPS high school students substantially outperform Ohio's Big 8 districts by 6% in algebra, 10% in geometry, 10% in English 2, 8% in biology and American U.S. history, and 7% in American U.S. government. Is there still work to be done? Of course. Can anyone credibly argue that CPS will improve with fewer resources? Of course not. More money won't solve all the district challenges, but austerity never will. This district is facing an existential decision this evening. Will you protect CPS and lead its future, or will you orchestrate its demise? Thank you.
Thank you so much. And Ms. Phelps, you are the last person on this list, and I'm going to call down the next set of people. Well, let me say it again. I said Kendra Phelps is the next on the list, and I'm going to call down the next set of people. Can you hear me? Kendra Phelps is the next person on the list, and I'm going to call down the next set of people. Zen Gardner, Brandon Ogilby, I hope I didn't pronounce that wrong, Stefan Pryor, and Catherine Kenny. And Ms. Phelps, you have the floor.
Thank you. Good evening, school leaders. As a CPS student, employee, parent, and taxpayer, I can no longer sit back and listen to the negative and erroneous comments from some board members. The fact is, when matched against similar big city Ohio districts such as Cleveland, Toledo, Dayton, Akron, and Columbus, CPS assessment data tracks slightly above them all. Another fact is our assessment data shows that we are continually growing and improving. I also know that in the state guidance document for the Ohio School Report Card, it states, report cards are just one part of Ohio's education story. For a comprehensive picture, visit schools, talk to educators, parents, and students, and review school and district websites. It says many great things are happening every day in Ohio schools. Likewise, I want to say many great things are happening every day in CPS. If you care about our communities, maintaining strong public schools that meet the needs of our children, I need you to stand up for CPS instead of tearing us down. We do not want our public schools dismantled into a system of for-profit privatized schools where there will be the haves and the have-nots. You need to engage with our school communities instead of just reducing them to a data point. I have a document that I'm going to share with you today that was from our leadership in 2016 called Prepared for Life Report. And it says, quote, students' potential cannot be determined simply by test scores. That's why we look beyond state indicators and standards to serve the whole child, ensuring our students achieve their brightest future. I have copies for you so you can read the rest, and maybe it's an example of something you might want to put together.
Yes, ma'am. Can you give them to Ms. Phyllis behind you? Thank you. Zen Gardner is our next speaker.
Howdy, y'all. So in Indianapolis, Indiana, their public school structure has been torn down by the right wing. They were pushed into fiscal emergency, just like us, by state and federal legislature funding cuts. The state took over their board. Their board now controls the budget, the property, and the transportation, which of course is now on the backs of the public school funding to support transportation for the charters. The budget is also approved, so your salary schedule goes out the door. In addition to that, the whole contract becomes null and void because now the board says what happens and what they say is law. They determine new evaluation criteria and possible consequences. And now, at this point, buildings are having to be sold for $1. Now, they just put in some legislature that saves them from that, but that was work that was put together by the teachers. Taxpayers paid for those buildings. According to your actions, that is what you are trying to do. So my question is, what are your intentions for this district? Because if you put the levy off a year or another year, we're going into fiscal emergency, and goodbye public education for the entire Cincinnati city. It's not right. Do your job. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Brandon. Can you pronounce your last name?
Yes, good evening. My name is Brandon Ogilby,
Okay. Ogilvy.
and I am a proud Montessori parent and educator in this great district. For months now, we have listened to this board speak about doing what's right for our children and our community. We've watched some of you bloviate on the need for more evidence to support a levy and then conjecture on the failures of admin and staff to demonstrate this need. However, those of us here who are doing the work know that a number on a spreadsheet is not an indicator of student growth any more than a balance in a ledger is indicative of our prosperity. The evidence we've seen from some members of this board, on the other hand, suggests that some are not acting with the needs and wishes of our community in mind. This board's indecision and insistent demand for tangible evidence to support our often intangible successes shows this community that political talking points are more important than our students' personal growth. It seems that some of you are doing everything within your power to invite a state takeover while protecting your own image. This is why some of you voted in favor of an impassable income tax levy, and this is why some of you plan to repeal it tonight under the guise of community feedback. I want you to know that we see you. The parents, teachers, and voters here tonight, do not mistake your commotion for actual progress. Your failure to act is itself a statement of your priorities. Now, it is time for the voters to declare theirs. Do the right thing and vote for a property tax levy. Thank you.
Thank you. We have Stefan Pryor, who is next. Oh, Catherine Kinney, you want to go first? Go ahead, since you're standing there.
Dr. Moffett, before they start, we still have more people coming in through Zoom and switching over. We'd just like to remind them if they'd like to speak after the in-person, please click the hand icon, raise your hand, or chat with us so we can make sure to get you in. And thank you for working with us on our technical issues.
So Rob, we're only going to keep that open for 5 more minutes, and then we'll stop that. Thank you.
Okay. Hello, board. This is Catherine Kinney. I've spoken with you before, and I'm sure I will speak with you again. I would like to give you and the general public a quick history lesson on the history of education in the United States. When the United States first started, the education in the North was primarily to make sure that people could read and write. The education in the mid part of the country was education for those who were deemed the most academically gifted. And the education in the South was only for the wealthy landowners who could pay for private tutors. We are moving towards a Southern education model in the United States for the whole country. You're contributing. The federal government at the Department of Education being shuttered is contributing to this model. The Ohio State government system is contributing to this model by not fair funding our schools. And by me asking you multiple times this year, and everyone who's shown up to ask us to put funding on the budget and you not putting it on until the last minute, you're contributing to this as well. We have to make a statement as a community. If we want to make sure that everyone can be educated, we have to fund this as a community. Otherwise, what you're doing is asking teachers to be paid babysitters for less than babysitters make. And that's ridiculous. I want our future as a country to be bright. We can decide to fund it regardless of what everyone upstream wants us to do. But we all, as a community, have to decide to do that. And as a taxpayer, I've looked at what either method would fund, and I'm going to be paying $1,300 more a year either way for my household. And that's a third of one student for a year, and I'm more than glad to pay that. Everybody needs to step up. We all need to provide an education to our students, or the whole country is going to go downhill.
Thank you. And we have Stefan Pryor, who is coming up, and I'm going to call up our next set of speakers: Victoria Oakley, Jillian Whitaker,
There it is, y'all. I made it.
Kent Evans, Brian Griffin, and Michelle Dunn. Mr. Pryor, you have the floor.
Good evening. My name is Stefan Pryor. A name to know and a name you can trust. This shouldn't be about saving jobs alone. It should be about saving our children's future. Every dollar invested in Cincinnati Public Schools shall produce better educational opportunities and safer schools and stronger outcomes for students who depend on them. Our children deserve more than promises. They deserve results. I know good and well I had a dream last night, Eve, about you, Eve, that you was going to put this on the property tax. You called Jim on the phone. That was in a dream. You called Jim on the phone, and Jim was kind of scared and spooked. And he said, well, no, what I'm going to do? I'm going to put this on the property tax. And Jim, I woke up out of my dream, and I said, I must have been dreaming. So I had to come up here today to let y'all know, y'all better put this on the property tax. Y'all had to. Y'all gotta put this on property tax. I wasn't dreaming about you like that, Eve. But I was dreaming about you, Eve. But Eve, no, for real though, y'all, income tax levy, there's so many levies out there, and it's just sad. You know, you got children's service levy, you got smack your mama levy, you got a lot of levies out here. So it's gotta stop though, you know what I mean? So Make sure y'all do this, y'all. Property tax levy, it makes sense. It would help the children. And we need to bring the people that y'all laid off back. Y'all need to bring them back too. The ones y'all laid off after this levy, bring them back. Let's quit letting these babies sleep in cars too. Y'all can do that. I heard they sleeping in cars at Taft Elementary High School, but I went up there, I ain't see nobody sleeping in no cars. I ain't see no cars in the parking lot. So I don't know if that was true or not, but y'all need to make sure y'all put this on property tax, y'all. I got one more thing to say, just like she did too. I love you guys, and nothing you can do about it, all right?
Thank you. Victoria Oakley?
Well, how do you go after that? Okay. Good evening. My name is Victoria Oakley, and I'm a school social worker, as well as the head coach of 2 varsity sports, including Cincinnati Public's first and only full gymnastics team, the only inner cities team to compete in modern competition. During our 5 years so far, we produced 2 CPS Scholar of the Month athletes. We were rewarded 2 consecutive Southwest District Sportsmanship Awards, as well as District Coach of the Year and Assistant Coach of the Year. But because of the budget crisis, athletics and these programs are in danger. On top of that, we already know school social workers have been cut, and without a plan, will continue to be cut. Every day, new legislation is being introduced to combat these unprecedented times we're in, but are actually making it harder for us to graduate our kiddos, such as the new pathways for SEALs. Political leaders are wrongly but loudly stating that there is no budget crisis in public education, that it's the system and the people that are failing, without ever stepping foot in said schools. I urge the people who believe that rhetoric to have conversations with those who have attended and or worked in public schools in the past decade, while keeping in mind that not all school districts can be treated the same. Not all money is created equal. That being said, with every uncertainty shown by the board and this district, the people that once strongly backed us are starting to lose faith in our public school system as a whole and the programs we provide. I also urge the board to be completely transparent with the voters and have a strong strategic plan for the levy. A very direct plan with what the money is exactly going to do. A plan for how we're going to make up for the positions and programs that are already cut as is. Leave no room for voters to be wishy-washy about their votes because they know where all the tax dollars are going and that the board stands by its people in a unified front. Be here for the kids and the families, the community members, and the other voters like we all are every day. So important programs and people that get to our kids to graduate don't be in danger anymore. Thank you.
Thank you. And our next speaker is Jillian Whitaker.
Good evening. My name is Jillian Whitaker, and I'm both a Cincinnati Public Schools teacher, the parent of students in this district, and a property owner. Tonight, I'm asking the board to reconsider its decision to place an income tax levy on the ballot and instead return to the community with a property tax levy request. For decades, Cincinnati voters have consistently supported our schools. Time and time again, our community has stepped up and passed property tax levies because they believe in public education. This community has proven it's willing to invest in our students. What makes this different is not simply the type of tax being proposed, it's the process by which this decision was made. An income tax levy would represent a fundamental shift in how Cincinnati Public Schools is funded, yet voters are being asked to make that decision with fewer than 90 days before the election. 90 days is not enough time for meaningful community engagement, thoughtful discussion, and public education on an issue that will shape the future of our district for years to come. We all know that if we want our schools to be fairly funded, we need to vote in a governor who values education. However, in lieu of constitutional funding systems, we need to find a way to increase our funds using what our community is willing to give. Our district has successfully passed property tax levies because the community understood the need and has confidence in the process. Tonight, I ask you to honor that history. Revoke the decision to place an income tax levy on the ballot and place a property tax levy instead, in order to have time to renew the community conversation and give Cincinnati families the time and information they deserve before making such a significant change. Finally, I specifically ask the board member who voted no for both levies last time to reconsider your vote. Tying your vote to a promise from teachers to use outdated curriculum that doesn't include the science of reading feels like setting the district and teachers up for failure. Threatening to withhold your vote unless people meet your conditions feels an awful lot like holding your vote for ransom and like a direct violation of the trust that was given to you by the voters when their desires have been so clearly stated. Thank you.
Thank you. And our next speaker is Kent Evans. Mr. Evans, you have the floor for 2 minutes.
I know you all have titles. I apologize for not going through them. I'm not that quick. This parent of 3 former K through 12 CPS students is okay with the muni tax proposal, but you need to correct what is a regressive tax and make it a progressive tax like our longstanding federal tax system does. Sadly, the city of Cincinnati hasn't done this already. I've been told by one of the council persons privately that the state law prohibits this. Why don't we get the staff attorneys, the district attorneys, to look into that and go after it? Put it into the system and see what comes out of it. Because this needs to be an alternative possibility if in fact there's a resistance to increasing the property tax. It should seem reasonable in light of our state's leaders taking public money and using that to supplement costly private school tuition. Raising the percentage of this tax in tiers from the low income earners to high income would be the normal thing to do to offset these tiers who's benefited from mostly from recently public tax monies. It would provide a counterbalance to fair play. In addition, there is a number of non-district students paying tuition to attend CPS schools, at least one in particular I know of, who won't participate in this necessary funding. So if they're living outside this district, they're not going to be paying the extra muni tax. And guess what? They're not going to be paying the property tax either. So either way, you could close that gap and it would balance off to some degree. And moving in the right direction sends the right message, because then when you get resistance, you can call it out, and you can call it out in the court systems. And then people who are passionate back here can then respond to those illegitimate responses. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Brian Griffin.
Good evening, members of the board, friends. Thank you for the opportunity to address you this evening. I know that most of you know me, but for the record, my name is Brian Griffin. I'm the Executive Secretary Treasurer for the Cincinnati AFL-CIO Central Labor Council, and I speak tonight for tens of thousands of working families across this city, families whose children are already sitting in your classrooms. And I'm here to ask you to reconsider on this levy, not because our schools don't need the money, they do. Not because our children don't deserve a fully funded classroom, they do. I'm asking you to reconsider because of who this earned income tax asks to carry the weight and who it lets walk away. Somewhere in this district tonight, a mother is closing out their shift at a nursing home. A father is punching out a warehouse clock. Somewhere, the 16-year-old is bagging groceries at the Kroger. Under this plan, every one of these paychecks takes a hit. But the landlord, who owns the property and lives someplace else, is untouched. The portfolio built by wealth, generating more wealth, is untouched. The wage takes the hit, the wealth walks free. That is not equity, that is not justice. And let us name the truth plainly. We would not be here tonight, neighbors against neighbors, if our elected servants in Columbus just did their damn jobs. The Ohio Constitution requires a thorough and efficient system of public education, and if they did their jobs and stopped siphoning off educational funding to the private sector, who we wouldn't be arguing over this, would we? I'm going to keep this. I am telling you to walk away, not from the students, but walk away from this levy. I am asking you to go back and find a way for the wealth of the city to sit down beside the wage earners, not behind them, not above them, beside them. Ask the property to find the funds. Ask the portfolio for the funds. Do not ask the paychecks. Give Cincinnati a levy that asks everyone who has built their fortune here to help fund the fortune for our future. And the children are that future. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I am going to, thank you. I'm going to call down the next two while Michelle Dunn comes down. Mr. Niehaus, Angela Couch, and you have the floor, Ms. Dunn.
Thank you. My name is Michelle Dunn. I work at the Cincinnati Federation of Teachers offices. I've worked on levies for nearly 15 years, and I've never seen what can only be explained as a sabotage. The effort to coerce a vote for an unpopular, unsupported income tax at the last minute is literally part of the privatization playbook for how to weaken and set up a school district for takeover by fiscal emergency. The need for a new operating revenue was identified in early January at your board retreat under the previous treasurer. You knew an income tax had very little chance. We know this because Mayor Aftab tried to get it done, and even he was shut down about it. You knew there would be no broad political support. You apparently must have not asked, because as soon as it was announced, there was, from every sector and stakeholder, opposition to your idea. You chose it anyway, instead of pursuing an option that had a realistic chance of passing. The result of your failure is already known. More cuts, larger class sizes, fewer opportunities for our children, and a financial condition that continues to deteriorate. And we know from other districts what then happens, which is school closures and charters take over. The children of this district should not bear the consequences of your failed leadership. Put our students, not politics, personal agendas, or special interests first, and please vote for something that has a chance in hell of passing in 90 days, and that won't be opposed by every possible stakeholder in this city. And that is to please put a property tax on the ballot. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Niehaus, you're up. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Mark Niehaus. I'm the Director of Communication. All right.
Sorry about that. We'll get you started again.
All right. We ready?
Yes.
All right. Good evening. My name is Mark Niehaus. I'm the Director of Communications for the Cincinnati Federation of Teachers. I'm also the father of an 8-month-old who I hope to one day send to Cincinnati Public Schools. Today, I'm speaking on behalf of James Wolfe, a Mount Healthy resident and an educator in Southwest Ohio. Cincinnati Public School Board, I'm writing to you having just come off managing the earned income tax levy for Mount Healthy City Schools this past May. As your body has discussed the merits of an earned income tax levy versus a property tax levy, numerous educators, politicos, and a few media outlets have reached out to ask what lessons Mount Healthy's win can be applied to Cincinnati's upcoming levy. My short answer is very little. Very little for 3 distinct reasons that even this board can understand. Number 1, the tax base of both districts are nothing alike. Number 2, the financial risks of both districts are completely different. Number 3, the political realities of both districts could not be further apart. As you make your decision tonight, I urge you not to see Mount Healthy's success with an earned income tax as any indicator of your chances of passing the same type of levy here in Cincinnati Public. I want you to be successful, and I want to see all public education thrive in these challenging times. I hope this gives you more info to help inform your decision and pass a property tax levy for your district. Sincerely, James Wolfe. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Niehaus. And our next speaker is Angela Couch.
Good evening, Superintendent Murphy, board members, and Treasurer Guston. My name is Angela Couch. I am a preschool teacher at Winton Hills Academy. and first Vice President of the Cincinnati Federation of Teachers. On Saturday, local churches, community organizations, CFT, and many more were at the Corinthian Baptist Church for the 6th annual Day of Blessings. CFT gave out books and bookmarks to preschoolers all the way to 12th graders. The joy that the children and their parents had was amazing and a beautiful sight to see. As we know, public education is under attack. Our students, their families, and staff deserve a levy that has a chance of passing. Please rescind the vote that was taken on last Monday and vote for a property tax, or put a property tax on the levy. CPS is a lifeline for students, families, communities, and staff. We all deserve a decision that will continue to keep CPS strong and thriving. Please do the right thing. Thank you.
Thank you. Rob, we have 2 online. Okay, let's do our online speakers, and then we will conclude with Julie Sellers.
Thank you.
Oh, wait, we have one more that I want to read, and then we'll conclude with Julie Sellers.
Thank you. Our first online speaker is going to be Ashley Simpson. Ashley, you can unmute your camera and microphone.
Hello.
And hold on one second. We're going to go over here so they can see you. And you have 2 minutes. Go ahead, Ashley.
Good evening. I'm the parent of a 2nd grade student at Kilgore School. I'm here speaking for myself, but I can tell you this. Parents and grandparents in our community are talking. On play dates, playgrounds, and at the pool, and in camp pickup lines, families are asking each other the same question. What is happening to our district? Parents care. If you're not hearing from them at board meetings, it's because they're working, raising children, and volunteering at the school level. The board meeting times are not parent-friendly. I would task the district with creating a formal parent advisory committee so that parent voices are at the forefront of board decision-making. Parents have strong opinions about curriculum, class sizes, technology usage, and more. I believe that the majority of parents want the district to move in a different direction than is currently being pursued by the board's policy committee. More than anything, parents are desperate to fund our schools. The board has taken a significant gamble by pursuing an earned income tax levy that has divided our community. I urge you to reconsider and place a property tax levy before voters instead. If our schools need additional funding, they deserve the funding mechanism with the strongest track record of success. Our children deserve a proven solution, not a reckless experiment. My greatest fear is families deciding they've had enough and leaving Cincinnati Public Schools. Once families leave, they're incredibly difficult to bring back. We don't just lose enrollment, we lose volunteers, community, and trust. And our children lose the most by having their friends and classmates scatter to other schools. Please listen to the families who have chosen Cincinnati Public Schools and want to keep choosing them. Put students first, trust teachers, and partner with parents. We cannot let the district decline into fiscal emergency and state takeover. Teachers, principals, and PTOs are currently asking for building supplies and materials on social media from the community. This is an embarrassment to our district. Fund our schools. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ashley. Our next online speaker is Kim. Hold on one second. There we go. Kim, you can unmute your camera and microphone. You have 2 minutes.
Hi, good evening, everyone. I would just like to say that I am a homeowner, and being a homeowner and making sure that our children is getting the right education. Because if you guys doesn't put this on the property tax on the tax levy, our children is going to fail. Because when you put children all together into a classroom, 20 or 30 some students into the classroom, and when you have behavior children in the classroom, that's even going to make it even more stressful on teachers. You're going going to start losing teachers and you're going to start losing, your staff. So when you have good teachers, and I've been a teacher for 30 years and I worked in the Cincinnati Public School. So I know what it is and what it's about and how it is when you're working in a classroom. I know none of you all panels that sit up there haven't been working in a classroom before, but I think that you all need to take that chance to go into the classroom to see what teacher go through when there's 20 children into a classroom, some children that have behavior problem. But if this property tax levy doesn't go on the ballot, it's going to suffer. And who we're going to look at when it suffers, we're going to look at you all because you all are failing our children. Because teamwork got to make dream work. And when I listened to this meeting last week, I could just see it's not teamwork. So let's be a team and let's get this on the ballot so our children can have a good future. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you. And I'm going to read a statement that is from our former board member, former colleague, Melanie Bates. I'm going to read some highlights. She has the full statement over if you'd like to read it yourself, but I'm going to highlight a few things. President Sellers, you can make your way down. She shares, members of the board, I am in full support of putting levy for new money on the November ballot. In my opinion, a fixed property tax levy has the best chance of passage and covering the necessary expenses of the district without cuts of which would have a devastating effect on academics. The decisions made with my board colleagues during my 20-year tenure as a member of the Cincinnati Board of Education have left a legacy with CPS that has made our schools academically strong, inclusive, and providing lasting infrastructure. State funding is being diverted from public schools and is being directed to schools that have educators without certification, finances not publicly audited, and test scores not required to be publicized. Admissions policies for these schools are often selective. I recently saw a Facebook post of a parent who contacted nearly 10 local private and open enrollment public high schools searching for a placement for their child with an IEP, and she was told none were accepting students with IEPs. CPS welcomes all students with IEPs. Nearly 20% of our students have special needs. It is very obvious that there is an organized campaign to discredit public schools, especially those that serve the most vulnerable of our students. CPS needs to counter that with facts about our finances and continued plans for increasing academics. A levy campaign is not just a way to provide appropriate funding for our students' education, but the opportunity to educate our citizens about what CPS provides for the community and how their tax dollars are used judiciously. It is also the opportunity to welcome input for improvement. Please consider your legacy to CPS. Don't allow what was built over decades of hard work and community support to be stripped down to bare bones. Respectfully submitted, Melanie Bates. And our last speaker will be President Julie Sellers. And to remind the community, due to the collective bargaining unit, she has unlimited time. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening, members of the board, Superintendent Murphy, and Treasurer Gustin. Board member Lindy has repeatedly asked me to state the Cincinnati Federation of Teachers position on this strategic plan, specifically Priority 1. At this time, however, the only information that has been made publicly available is a PowerPoint presentation outlining a preliminary draft. The draft has not been finalized, formally presented to the board for consideration, published for public review, or adopted by the Board of Education. I think it's premature for us to have been called to the mic to support it. It was presented by a bellwether during the July 27th special board meeting last Monday, and it was during the time to address the new money levy. This presentation was without notice on the agenda. Based on the information currently available, I can say that the Cincinnati Federation of Teachers supports the strategic plan Priority 1 of equitable access to high quality instruction for every student. We're committed to student success. We've always been committed to student success. And we will support board initiatives that strengthen public education while remaining consistent with our collective bargaining agreement. That was on slide 10. We also support priorities 2, 3, and 4, slides 11, 12, and 13. Of course we support those things. We're already doing those things. Many of the concepts included in the preliminary draft strategic plan reflect work that our educators in schools are already doing every day. Our teachers have been long committed to providing high-quality instruction, fostering safe and welcoming learning environments, and ensuring that every student has the opportunity to succeed. We look forward to reviewing a completed strategic plan once it has been finalized and formally presented to the board and the public. CFT and our members will continue to fully support the CPS promise. That was on slide 9, and it says that our teachers have long committed to providing high-quality instruction, fostering safe and welcoming learning environments, and ensuring that every student has the opportunity to succeed. We look forward to reviewing the completed strategic plan. CFT and our members continue to fully support the CPS promise, which has been recognized for generations, even since I started teaching, although sometimes those promises were under another name. This is the goal for every CPS graduate, slide 8. CFT loves the fact that graduates should graduate to be civically engaged and grounded in empathy and integrity. That's what we want every day. Teachers want all students to be confident and capable by believing in their own potential, by having the skills, habits, and knowledge to author their own future. That's what we want for every child, and I run into students all the time who have fulfilled those beliefs. Teachers encourage CPS students to lead and collaborate by working across differences to step up to lead when it matters. That's a goal of every school. Teachers and school social workers and counselors help students build resilience and adaptability by helping students persist through challenges, which they have many, adapt when their paths change, and keep moving forward. Counselors, school social workers, and teachers work diligently to build real and concrete experiences toward goals with a clear path for what comes next. Teachers, pre-K through 12, want students to be successful academically. CPS and Bellwether had not included CFT professional practitioners until July 14th through the 17th. There were only 2 people on each one of the priorities for a 5-hour meeting. And that was what was driving our delay in responding to the plan. We had no input in the development of the plan. But I feel confident that our district's communities join us in the 2030 commitment, slide 9 of the Bellwether Project. By 2030, every CPS student will attend a school where they are known, valued, and supported. I believe we've already met that commitment. Are taught by excellent and well-equipped educators. I believe we are there. Have equitable access to learning that prepares them for their future. I think we need to add more. All of Cincinnati, as well as the areas outside the city that are included within the CPS boundaries, should own this commitment. Educators cannot do it alone. CPS must work with families, partners, unions, students, and the Cincinnati community as a whole to make it real. Moving forward, the final draft must respect and include everyone. These priorities must be financially supported to implement our budgeted plans and move forward together. Without financial support, this is just a pipe dream. For the sake of our students and our community, I hope that you will vote to fund this effort, and this is the board's legal and moral responsibility. I hope that you take 2 votes this evening, one to rescind the income tax, and 2, to have a property tax so that we can get to work tomorrow and get this levy passed, because the timeline you have given us is going to be a lot of work for many people. Thank you.
Thank you. And President Craig, I believe that that concludes our hearing of the public, and I turn it back over to you. Thank you.
Alrighty. And again, I want to thank everyone who is online, who's been very patient with our wonderful partner Zoom, who decided tonight's meeting would be the perfect time to let the entire network go down. So we're back up, raring to go, and we were able to have a couple of folks who chose to participate virtually, engage. So the next item on our agenda is an item that was brought forth to the attention of the chair to add to our agenda. What we're going to do is, if there is a person who would like to start by making a motion, and then a person who would like to second it, we would then open up for discussion at that point and go through our discussion with regards to the request for the rescission of the resolution. So if there's a person who would like to make the motion, I believe the motion does have to come from a person who made the vote. But otherwise, if someone would like to.
Who voted for it?
Yes. Okay. So if someone would like to make the motion, and then if we have a second to it, we will then go into discussion. Just go ahead.
Yes, I'd like to make the motion to rescind the resolution proposing and submitting to the electors of the Cincinnati School District the question of imposing an additional 0.75% school income tax.
Okay. Is there a second? Yeah, yes. No.
I was just asking if the seconding has to be from the prevailing position. Chair answered.
Yes, no, it does not.
Okay.
So is there a second to the motion that's on the floor?
I'd second it.
Okay.
So we can discuss it.
Yeah. All righty. So we have a motion and we have a second. And so we are now open for discussion with regards to the rescission, the motion to rescind the resolution proposing and submitting to the electors of the City of Cincinnati School District the question of imposing an additional 0.75% school district income tax. Mr. Lindy. Former Lindy.
Thank you, President Craig. I don't have a lot of comments here. I just wanted to share I have no problem voting to rescind the income tax. Thank you.
Any other discussion? Board Member Crossett.
Yeah, I want to thank our board members in the last meeting for putting this on the ballot, or for making the motion, because we have some confusing times. There's been a lot of discussion in our state about removing property tax, and this was a thought of an alternative way of maybe raising money. But I think I've received considerable feedback from the community about some of the unintended consequences of this tax. And I feel like we probably could have used a little more time to do engagement and get some data on what the results of this tax are. I do think that, as we've discussed previously, that an income tax might be helpful with our 29 levy maybe, but I just feel like there's been so much pushback from our community that this tax has a very significant chance of not passing. And that is one of the reasons I think we should rescind it, is because if it's on the ballot and fails, which is, we've heard a lot of feedback about that tonight and during the week, that is something that will be another hurdle and another detriment for our district. So just some of the thoughts that I share. I think we did something with good intentions, and sometimes when you get feedback, it's important to make a pivot and take that feedback and try to progress in another direction. So thank you.
Board Board Member Armbruster.
Yeah, I'm going to speak just specifically on the recension. So last Monday, I voted to place a tax levy on the ballot. Tonight, I plan to support the removal of it. Neither of those decisions was made lightly. I initially voted yes because my primary responsibility is the students of Cincinnati Public Schools and ensuring the financial and fiscal responsibility for them. However, the past week, one thing has become very obvious to me, and that is that our community needs more time and a clearer picture of our financial landscape before we change our funding structure. Therefore, I will plan to rescind the earned income levy this evening.
All right. Any other board member? Board Member Bolton, and then Vice President Moffitt.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. I think it's very important for folks to fully understand last Monday's vote. In part of the reality was a worry that indeed it was that or nothing, and that you have 7 board members that care deeply about what we're doing and how we do it and how we can fund our schools and teach our kids. So I think that was part of the motivation. I do think that the engagement piece was a problem for us, not particularly across the landscape of parents or schools or whatever, but mostly the engagement that needed to take place with our multiple governmental entities, of villages, townships, little cities that are part of our district. And we sometimes forget that Cincinnati Public is bigger than the city of Cincinnati. And so when you make these kinds of moves, you really needed almost a structural kind of engagement with those that are part of, whether it's Amberley Village or Cheviot, or whether it's Gulf Manor, or whether it's Springfield Township, whatever it is, the district needed some engagement in that more formalized structure. I was part of, about 30 years ago, in another school district when we had to do and decided to do the income tax. It was not necessarily to relieve property tax folks of their burden, but rather to share the burden and also have a belief that you could have less stable funding, but bigger funding on particular years and particular business cycles. That's the value of the income tax. I did not support the income tax vote last week because I felt that we still had another opportunity, and that could be property tax. One of the issues for the income tax for me is it places too much burden on the wage earner and the salaried person, that for 150 years, we have not asked them to fund our schools. And we have asked property owners to fund our schools for 150 years because there is a correlation between property value and also property tax that is benefits. The other piece that is important too on the income tax that is upsetting to me, and it didn't necessarily manifest itself in the district 30 years ago where I was working, because there is no industry and virtually no business. It is completely a suburban district of households, and that's Wyoming. But here, if indeed a big district like ours, and this is probably part of what Mr. Wolf was talking about out of Mount Healthy, and having been on the Mount Healthy City Council, I know what he's really talking about regarding Mount Healthy versus us. Property tax taxes businesses because businesses own property. Income tax does not do that. So it's one more, as somebody mentioned, one more part of where the business community may not be fully participatory in paying and holding the responsibility that they need. But I certainly am very happy, and I believe that we should rescind. Matter of fact, staff board looked it up. Besides rescinding policies that Mr. Lindy and his committee invariably have us do because we have to move on to another policy. We've done in the last 50 years or so, we've rescinded, I think, 4 things. So this is not extraordinary. It's unusual, but not extraordinary. And I do think it's great to rescind the income tax. I think somewhere down the line, we may be using it, to Jim's point, but right now, it's not the right choice for us. So I'm happy to be ready to vote for rescinding and follow up with whatever else may follow. Thank you.
All righty. Then we'll go to Vice President Moffitt and then Board Member Matt.
So last week, after extensive discussion, I voted to support in support of placing an earned income tax levy before the voters because I believed it represented the most equitable funding option available while still recognizing the very real financial needs of Cincinnati Public Schools. And since that vote, I have spent the past week doing exactly what I believe board members should do, which is listen. And someone asked the question of how did we get here? Well, I sat in a budget committee meeting, and I actually sat in the budget committee meeting after having engaged with many in the community, voters, teachers, parents, and I also heard President Sellers say she thought that the community wanted an earned income tax levy. So it wasn't that I wasn't listening to, or I was only listening to one set of people. I listened to a lot of people. A lot of our retired property tax owners asked if we could please consider something else because they've always supported CPS and they were finding it financially difficult to do that. And those conversations started last year. And so this is not something that I came to very lightly. This is not something that I came to just ingest. This is something that people actually discussed. So I think there's been a lot of background noise, and it's very unfortunate, a lot of chaos in helping to get the confusion there within the community. Now, I do think 100 days is very, very, very brief on such a big, big thing that we need to do. But I think also educating the community on the needs of our levy is what we also need to do as well, because they deserve it. And 100 days is also not enough time to do that. So I think that we have a lot of work to do for either way. And so I've heard from parents, taxpayers, educators, business leaders, city officials, county leaders, state legislators, and members of our community. And while many have expressed varying opinions about the type of levy, there has been one message that has been remarkably consistent, is that we need greater collaboration. Those conversations have reinforced my belief that the future financial sustainability of CPS cannot rest solely on this board. It requires meaningful partnerships with our municipal and county governments, our business communities, our labor partners, community organizations, and the citizens that we serve. Quite frankly, those collaborative conversations should have begun much earlier in this process. And if collaborative and not siloed meetings, which were had, and conversations occurred months ago, we may have found ourselves in a stronger position today with broader community alignment and greater public confidence. I do remain supportive of an earned income tax levy because that is the position I thoughtfully received after reviewing all of the information and the data before us. It seemed to be the choice that voters wanted with the correct and accurate information. But I will support rescinding the earned income levy if we have collaborative conversations with our city, collaborative conversations with our county, who have offered that to us during this week of chaos. And at the same time, I want to be equally clear that I do remain committed to working collaboratively with every willing partner, regardless of today's outcome, to develop a long-term financial strategy that is transparent, sustainable, and worthy of the students and families of Cincinnati. Because I think it extends beyond tonight's vote to restore the confidence, strengthen the partnerships, and ensure that we are positioned for success.
All righty, Board Member Matt.
So, thank you for the opportunity to speak.
I'm very concerned about the events that have occurred after July 27th meeting. I'm concerned to the point of wanting to know what is going on. What is it really about? And I asked this to my colleagues, Eve Bolton, Jim Crossett, Julie Sellers, Michelle Dunn. What's really going on? Because I cannot believe that it is about our children. Because we're talking about rescinding the vote. I recognize that there may be differences in how we come to a decision. But what I cannot bear to recognize is the behaviors that have occurred as a result of a decision that was made by the board. And so for several meetings, for my tenure as a board member, I've had to endure and sit with whatever the majority vote was, the motion carried. And so unfortunately, I'm really disheartened because I'm trying to understand what is really going on. When we talk about our children, that's what my focus is about. When we talk about our children, where was the outrage when it came to the growth plan that did not grow our district, but displaced our students and our families? Where was the outrage? What was the outrage when we as a board asked for a superintendent search, but we voted to put a superintendent in place without engagement? So when we talk about what we're here for and doing our job as a board, we showed up and we did our job. You all as constituents came and said, put a levy on the ballot. And we did that as a board. You did not say what type of levy. You said put a levy on the ballot. And there was always discussion about what type of levy we would approve. We said, well, we're having a hard time trying to figure out. We've asked our administration for more information so that we can make informed decisions as much as possible. But what I will not stand for, what I will not tolerate is being in a position where board members are being bullied, board members are being coerced, board members or individuals are manipulating the vote, individuals are lobbying. I will not be a part of it. So I am here to ask what is really going on, because the focus does not seem to be about our children. So again, where was that same outrage? Where's that outrage for our students where we recognize 58.5% of our students are African American, but there's a disparity, there's a gap in our achievement for our students? I don't hear the outrage. So what I am saying to you, I am not in a position of rescinding my vote because individuals are not in favor of what the outcome was, and so wanted to change the direction and the course. I stand committed to what I have voted on. I am not in favor of rescinding the vote for the earned income tax levy. Thank you.
And board, okay, so two things here real quick. And I didn't want to interrupt you, Board Member Matt, but I wanted to call out something here. If you cannot control yourself, please leave. We will have respect and decorum in here. I appreciate it when we sit here and hear all the messages that come in and be respectful and listen. I ask that the same be done, that we do not interrupt from the outside. And if you cannot live that up, we will ask you to leave. We will have decorum here. Now, number two, and I want this to be very clear. I think there's a wonderful space of time in which we can have the real discussions about how the next steps of our district move forward and have real discussions about what are the plans for our district and a lot of other things that are really important to our students' education that are vastly important for this year. We are in the midst of having a conversation right now about the rescission of a vote, which is, to a certain extent, and to my knowledge, we have never rescinded a levy vote in the past. So it is an unprecedented situation. And I think that is something we should acknowledge, that there may be reasons for folks to have those feelings. There may be reasons for people to have a decision to do that. I think it also is a reality that there are things that have happened in this community over the last week that are also unprecedented, that make the possibility of passing a levy that much harder, regardless of what type of levy it is. And I think the reality is that this is not something as simple as every person now will love it and vote for it. We know that. If we don't know that, we should. We also know that I've heard from a lot of folks who seem surprised that our district was having financial issues, that seemed shocked and awed by the fact that the district, who has for the last 3 years, had to cut over $100 million from our spending in order to balance budgets. We had to take unprecedented steps to balance this year's budget. But folks suddenly were surprised, shocked, and awed that the district was having to do these extreme steps. And I think the reality is that there were folks who weren't paying attention. Because we've been saying it, these wonderful folks here, these wonderful reporters here have been covering it. These stories have been going on for months. And the fact that folks suddenly became awakened to the fact that the district might actually need to put a levy on the ballot is disappointing to me, but it tells me something. It tells me that, to a point that Dr. Moffitt was making earlier, it tells me that there's conversations that we should have been having, we need to be having, and we must have as we move forward, because several of these folks intricately work with the community that is where our students come from, that is our families. And if we are going to build a long-term success for the district, it requires us to be partners with the county, with the city, with our community leaders, with our faith leaders, with our business leaders, with our labor leaders, with everybody at the table. And that's a conversation we have not had. And what's disappointing to me is how many people have actively worked to break that potential of that conversation. See, I get it. I get the wanting to do a lot of good things in this district, and I think the importance it is always got to be going back to our students. But I think the truth is that we do not bring a coalition together to pass a levy without actually listening and stop attacking each other. Stop making it a personal thing on each person and making it a thing about what's best for our students. So if we are committed to that, I think there are going to be votes that we're going to have as a board. Now, I also want to address one other thing that I think is important for us as a board to acknowledge. While these votes are very hard and very difficult and present challenges to us personally, and in some cases where we may be struggling in our own mind of what to do, I think there is no way that this community, this city, the county, the folks in our municipalities that are part of the district get to a yes without seeing something more positive, more directed at where our future looks like, and more focused on how our students will benefit first and foremost. If we do not start with our students and any message that goes out, if we are not principally speaking about what our students will be able to do, can do, and their futures first and foremost, I don't know that anyone's seeing the work that's being done here as competent or as ready to move forward. So I beg of the folks who are passionate about our students to focus on our students going forward. For those folks who are passionate about our district, show up at our buildings. Show up with our students. Tutor. Go bring resources to our buildings. Work with folks. Because I got to tell you, there's a lot of people who have told me over the last few days that they are so supportive of our district, including folks who have been here at the table. But when we ask of things, when we look to them for that support, I want to see that support there, and I think there's the space to do that. So if there is no other discussion, I will go ahead and have the treasurer call the vote.
All right, Ms. Armbruster,
Yes.
Ms. Bolton,
Yes.
Mr. Crossett,
Yes.
Mr. Lindy,
Yes.
Ms. Mapp,
No.
Vice President Moffitt, President Craig.
Yes. As I know there will probably be, are there any other matters for which around a levy that folks would like to bring a motion for?
Mr. Chair, I would like to.
Turn your microphone.
Okay,
It
Dawn?
is.
Board
Thank
Member
you. I do need that reminding more than once. Yes, I'd like us, having now accomplished the rescinding of the previous vote, and we are staring at a time deadline, and I think we do need for the public, as you've just pointed out, a discussion about our finances and our challenges in the very near future, as well as longer period of time. I would like to make a motion that since the property tax that was first proposed was a 8 mil property tax, it had 4 votes that same night, but did not get the requisite 5 votes. It failed, and since it failed, I'd like to bring in one of the 3 recommendations, or actually 2 recommendations from the Finance Committee. Previously, the Finance Committee had been charged with the responsibility of coming back with suggestions and recommendations, and the Finance Committee did come back with 2 recommendations, but also with the interest of having the board discuss income tax. So people do change their minds. And so the 3 suggestions were a property tax for 8 mil, a property tax for 7 mil, and also at least a discussion for the board to have regarding income tax. And of course, that discussion turned into a vote, much to the surprise of the finance chair myself, but it is what it was. So I would like us to be able, if there's a second, to have a full discussion of the other recommendations from the board finance committee, which was 7 mil, and have not only a discussion among ourselves, but also talk in terms of the validity of that recommendation as a product of the Finance Committee. So I would like to move that the board place on the ballot in November a 7 mil fixed sum, fixed time, 7 mil property tax. And ask for a second.
Okay, is there a second to the motion?
I second.
Okay. Before we go into discussion, I just want to do one little point of order to have the treasurer also read off the results of the last, since we didn't actually formalize the ending to it, so just
Please.
formalize the ending of the last vote that was done. Yeah.
So the motion to rescind carried 6-1, right? So now, I believe the motion Ms. Bolton put on is from the last meeting, there was a resolution determining to proceed with submission of an additional 7 mil property tax. I don't know, I need to read the entire thing, but it was posted to board docs before. So I mean, I can read the entire thing, but I'm not sure it's necessary.
I don't think it's necessary.
We'll say a successful vote of this motion would require five yes votes.
Okay. Open the floor for discussion. Board Member Lindy.
Thank you. I'm going to start by saying that unless something changes, I am inclined to vote in favor of this property tax this evening. But I do want to spend a few minutes talking about why and a couple things that I think are really important. I've shared this before. We have many folks here who have not been at board meetings in the last couple months where I've shared this, and so I'll just share a little context. For our district, I believe deeply that 2 things are true. The first is we have very real financial challenges that we need to address. Anyone who has been through any of our last several budget processes know how many cuts we have had to make and how painful those cuts are. I challenge anyone to run an organization with flat revenue and increasing costs for a long enough period of time, and you'll see how that goes. The financial challenges are real. The thing that's also true at the same time is that a reasonable voter has good reasons to worry, I think, about whether we will use new revenue in ways that truly make a difference for students. In that corner, I offer things like, member Matt mentioned the growth plan that led to no growth. We have declining enrollment. Can also look to the fact that our third grade reading scores have gone down. We can look at other areas too. And I don't think that it's wrong for a voter who's going to give new money to our district to say, where's the plan? How are you going to spend the money? How is it going to make a difference for students? I think that's our number one responsibility. So what do you do when both of these things are true? We do need more money, and I think it's reasonable to have concerns. Well, I think what that means is it sets a very high bar for the plan that we need to be able to show the public. We need to have a strategic plan that shows how we're going to invest new funds to make a difference for student outcomes. We need to be able to show the public that there is a team that is supportive of that plan. That includes a board, it includes an administration, and it includes the largest union in Cincinnati Public Schools. Now, up until, I don't know, an hour and a half ago, 2 hours ago, we didn't have that full picture. We've made real progress with the strategic plan. At our last meeting on the 27th, we did have support for the emerging priorities. I should be clear too, the plan is not done. I wish that we had a fully finished and approved strategic plan. We don't. I do take at their word the people who have been working on this, including our superintendent, including several members of this board, including several people who are here tonight, that they've been working hard. You want to do this well, and they're going as fast as they can. And we received, I think, a very substantive update at the last meeting. Board support, administrative support. We're waiting on support from Cincinnati Federation of Teachers. I don't think it's ridiculous to want some time to read that, think about it, and come back with something thoughtful. And so just about an hour before the meeting started, we received the statement that Julia read at the podium earlier in hearing of the public. And I want to say thank you. This is not something that the teachers union needed to do. It's something that I asked for. Because if I'm going to look voters in the eye and I'm going to tell them why I'm supporting a levy, I need to believe there's a plan, and I need to believe there's a team that is united behind it. I think the challenges we face are real, but I am inclined to support this property tax because we have a strong emerging strategic plan, and we do have evidence of buy-in across the three groups that I asked for. So I want to say just a couple other things, and then I will yield the microphone. There are four specific things here I want to mention. The first one is, people said a lot of different things here tonight. I agree with many of the things that people said. I disagree with some of the things that people said. That's okay. We live in a democracy. We are allowed to disagree about things. The point I want to challenge directly is whether or not there's anything that needs to change here at Cincinnati Public Schools. I think we have an enormous amount to celebrate. I'm an alum of Cincinnati Public Schools. I'm a CPS dad. I think we have a lot that we can celebrate. It's not quite true to say that all of the things that we would do in the strategic plan are things we're doing already. Everything is great. We need to give more money to the school district. I don't think that's accurate. I would offer in support of that a data point that I've mentioned at, I think, every school board meeting for the last 2 months, which is that if you look at what's happening at Hayes Porter, a school that has a higher share of poverty than the district. I'm just going to say that again. It's a school that has a higher share of poverty than the district. Their pass rate on the third grade reading test is 91%. Our district pass rate is 55.7%. We have work to do. I'm not saying that's somebody's fault. I'm not saying that makes anybody a bad person, but it's clearly possible. And so what the focus of this next chapter needs to be is figuring out how we can get stronger results like that together. I think the strategic plan, I think the letter from the union is one really important step in that direction. And one thing I'm pretty sure about is that it's going to be easier to get progress if we have additional revenue. And so that's why I'm moving in this direction. That was thing one. Thing two, Rob, can you bring up priority 1 from the bellwether deck? I think it's slide 10. Great, thank you. I'm so happy that instruction is priority 1. I do think that is the most important thing we need to work on at a district. I do think that if the board, the administration, and the union are truly working on this together over this next chapter of CPS, I do think some things will be different. I heard from a principal in May that she still has challenges from teachers who say they don't have to teach the adopted curriculum because the collective bargaining agreement gives them permission to teach what they want to teach. It's not accurate. We have a great curriculum adoption process that is highly inclusive. We have rigorous curriculum that we have adopted across the board. We do need to work on that together. Second, we'll see great attendance at our professional development days because the professional development we're providing on this is really important. We'll get less fighting about whether we should trust the data from instructional rounds about whether curriculum is being implemented or not, and instead, the conversation will be about how can we work together to help make sure everybody has the resources and support they need to make sure that every classroom has excellence happening every day. We won't hear as much or at all about instructional rounds and work on curriculum being micromanagement or not trusting the professional judgment of teachers. If we have a school where half the students aren't reading on grade level, we need to work together. And so I am excited about a future where the conversations we have about curriculum, about data, about student outcomes, where that changes. I think if we do this right, any parent can send their kid to any school in Cincinnati Public Schools and know that there's going to be on grade level instruction happening in that classroom, and that doesn't vary by classroom. That's thing 2. Thing 3, the last 2 are shorter, I promise. I think if anybody's been sitting in this room for the last couple hours, I think it's clear that there are strong opinions and people disagree. That's not going to change. And so if we go forward with new revenue, and if we go forward with this new strategic plan, we're going to need some way of working together. And my perspective is that it's going to take a perspective that's not currently in the room, that we're going to need some kind of third-party evaluator with somebody that is mutually approved by both the union and the administration, who can see, gosh, has the board and the administration done what we said we needed to do with respect to the strategic plan? Have our colleagues. And so for me, I am inclined to vote for this property tax this evening. When it comes to how we spend new revenue, if we're successful at the ballot box in November, it's going to be important that there is third-party, external evidence that everybody involved is doing what we said we were going to do. So I want to say thank you to the administration, the staff. I want to thank Julie. This was not a letter that she needed to send. It is a letter that I asked for, and I think it's really important. It's up to both sides to deliver, and I'm excited to be a part of that. Thank you.
All right. Other board members? Board Member Crossett?
Yeah, sure. Just a few thoughts. I think that we have been very lucky to have our strategic plan invested in by our philanthropic and business community to expand that strategic plan. I'm excited about it. I think a lot of people are excited about the depth and breadth of that plan. And I think also, I know we are not in a position necessarily to know how are we going to spend that money, but we do know that of the money in a property tax levy that we're talking about,
that there's probably 4 big areas that our treasurer and superintendent have already identified that we would spend the money. One of those would be for continued excellent instruction. One of those would be for paying for the increasing costs of our operations. One of those is for our building maintenance, which we know is, we've got some arrears on building maintenance. There's going to be some critical things to do. And the fourth thing is investing in new initiatives that come out of the strategic plan. And I think those 4 big areas have already been identified, and we can talk a little bit about those to the public as we go forward with this levy about how we would spend the money. I think that the strategic plan isn't finished yet, but it will be finished soon. And I think many of the details of the strategic plan will be available for us to communicate during a levy campaign. I also think it's important. I think one thing I'm excited about is if we have this levy and it's successful, we can more quickly act on that strategic plan. We can maybe begin investing in those initiatives within less than a year, rather than waiting a whole year after that to have the money to do those things. I also think that I'm confident that some of our partners that Dr. Moffitt talked about that we need to be in more collaboration with and communication with, for an example, the city and the Cincinnati Regional Business Committee. I think that we can be open to collaborating with them as we go forward and talk about what investments we are thinking about for the strategic plan. I hope there's enough nimbleness to adapt to that. And speaking of adapting, one of the things that I learned in my business career was that the organizations that survive and thrive are not necessarily the best. They're not necessarily the first, but they are the ones that adapt the fastest. And we have been given some circumstances from Columbus regarding our revenue. They've capped our local revenue that our voters have already approved. And we are in a fiscal guarantee, which kind of flattens or even reduces the money that we get from the state. And so those circumstances are new, and they were not really phased in, or we didn't get a lot of notice about it. So we have to adapt to that. And I think adapting quickly means we need to float a levy so that we can make up for the money that we are not getting from the state, so that we can continue to thrive and survive as a district. So I'm an advocate of adaptability. I also think the 7 mil levy is a good option. It's our most affordable option for our community. I know affordability is an issue, with our homeowners, but also that issue is not going to go away in a year or 2 years. I think we have an affordability issue in front of us that's going to be there for a while. Let's see if there's any other thoughts. The other thought I had about a property tax, I think a couple thoughts about the property tax that are interesting. Property tax is, in my view, the most equitable tax. I realize that our seniors are struggling with a high property tax. They do have higher home values, but everybody pays in the property tax. Renters pay, homeowners pay, businesses pay, and it spreads the burden much wider than just our W-2 earners within our district. So I like that idea, that I feel like it's more equitable. I think the other thing about the property tax to think about, the last thought I had is about the 20 mil floor rule, where the emergency levies are now part of the 20 mil floor. And in a way, we've had money taken away from us that voters have already approved. And so we are kind of covering the same ground to float a property tax where we're, kind of getting back the money in a form of property tax that our voters have already approved, some of that money. So just a thought about that as well. So those are my sharings, and thank you for listening.
All righty. Other board members? Board Member
I will
Matt,
be
sorry.
very brief. I'm just stating that I'm not voting in favor of the property tax. I, too, was willing to support the earned income with collaboration with our city, with our business community, and our community at large in our district. So I will not be voting in favor of the property tax.
All righty. Other discussion? Vice President Moffitt.
So I'm really a little conflicted because I have engaged extensively, and I think it just feels like privilege when we say that everyone pays with the renters pay and the property owners trickle that down. It bothers me because I've spoken to people who are really concerned about being able to afford their homes, and the property tax evaluation has gone up, and we've also had our county commissioners put a levy on the ballot again today, along with others, and I'm just a little concerned about that. But I also know, and I was very enlightened, just to let the public know, that the mayor has offered, and President Craig can expand a little bit more, but he's offered to partner with the district, along with the commissioners, the county commissioners, to look at, for the spring, opportunities for the district to work with the city on areas where we could potentially be included in their study that they are already conducting for their own income tax, but for other ways that there could possibly be the city's help and support for the district. Again, collaboration is significant. And a lot of this work, both good and bad, has been done in a silo. It has been done primarily by one or two hefty organizations that have lobbied for one particular type of levy, and it needs to be collaborative. We have partners that want to help that are not helping. In this district, in order for us to be successful in the long term, it needs to be collaborative. So I am very much, thank you for the sign, I am very much in favor of us all working together, and that extends beyond simply just CPS. Our city partners have offered, our county partners have offered, our legislators at the state level have come down and supported us, and you've seen Senator Blessings here. He has offered to work with us on some legislation that is coming down as well. It is going to probably get a little worse for us. I know Senator Ingram is here, and she has shared a little last week that we have some big things coming. And so I just think that we really are gonna need to do some things different in order to get different results. So not exactly sure where I stand right now, but thanks.
Board Member Armbruster.
Yeah, thank you. I too have spent the last week looking at every side of this issue, spending hours and hours on the phone trying to understand every single angle. I've gone over every single option countless times. I have listened to every single word. I have read every single email. And first and foremost, I just need to say that speaking divisively and disparagingly about any advocate and volunteer in this community or potential partner is not advocating for students. Everyone in this room deserves the respect to voice their opinion because it is in the best interest of students per their own personal belief system. And it is deeply unfair for anyone to accuse otherwise. I think for me, the worst option of all is going forward with something that is not backed by a community. Everyone in this room is passionate about this issue, but the majority of people that spoke tonight come from one group. That does not speak to a wide community support. Having a failing levy puts us in the same position with less partners. This decision has been the most difficult thing I have experienced in a very long time. I, like Dr. Moffitt, literally cannot, I have gone back and forth countless times in my brain. But most importantly, CPS cannot do this work alone. We need support beyond our four walls. Our traditional way of doing things is not enough. That is one thing that has been made very clear to me that if we continue to forge ahead without true engagement and partnership, we will continue to isolate ourselves. That is not in the best interest of students. That is not in the best interest of the long-term viability of this district. Making a vote tonight that will put this district at financial risk in the coming years is not something I would like to do, but it is my responsibility to look at the long-term viability of this district. And what I have heard over and over is that the districts that succeed are the districts that have true partnership. One of the most important perspectives I have gained is from a community education advocate that works across the country with districts. And the one thing I came away most importantly from that meeting was they have seen true partnership and success. I don't believe we have done the work as a board. I don't believe we have done the work as a district to set ourselves up for successful community partnership yet. I also recognize what Mr. President here said, that people aren't paying attention. And to sit there and belittle the financial crises that this district is in is irresponsible. You weren't listening. That's not our fault. We have cut over $120 million in the last 3 years. I'm asking you to pay attention. I'm asking you to dig in. Our students need each and every one of you. Please start paying attention. I have no desire to see this district fail. I know that that will be the narrative that comes out. I have no desire to see us go into fiscal emergency. I've had conversation after conversation about how to avoid that. I do believe that we have a lot of work to do as a district to realize full efficiency of the dollars we spend. I also recognize there's so much success in this district. There's so much joy. There's so many bright things. And I believe that a campaign right now would put a bad light on this district. And that is not in the best interest of our students. This decision is not something I have asked to make, but it is one I have a responsibility to make. And at the end of the day, my sole purpose on this board is to protect the district for future generations. I do not want this district to fail. Stop blaming people who have different opinions of not caring. It's unfair. We all, every single person in this room cares. Please, I am asking you to give respect to each and every one of the people that have spent their time, energy, and passion to help this district. I'm going to do that in the best way I know how, and that's through collaboration.
All right. Again, I'm asking folks to be respectful, and if you cannot control yourself, please step out the room. We will have decorum here today. Are there any other board members? Board Member Bolton?
Yes, thank you very much. A couple of things, many more than a couple of things. I appreciate everyone's comments. I approach this from a very practical standpoint. You know, that's sort of where I am. I am not philosophical. I am very practical. What concerns me, and the reason I made the motion, is that I do firmly believe that these schools, this district, does not belong to 7 board members. It belongs to the community. And if we deny the community the right to vote this November in what looks like a very big turnout, positive, pro-kids, pro-left of center turnout, I think we are saying we own the district, not the people. The, the taxpayers that have paid for this district and sent their children, the people like us that are alums and whatever, we love this school district. My practical approach is that all 7 of us have decided and have stated and gone on the record that we are in financial difficulty. You cannot deny that public record and say, well, we wait and we'll try to fix it later or with a different vision, or we're not quite ready. One of the reasons that we are alarmed about people not fully understanding our financial situation is that we have sat here for more than 8 months, actually 3 years, making cuts. So this is not the forum to make that education piece. Where that campaign is in the campaign, is in taking it to the ballot, forcing the issue, and indeed engaging the public in saying, you decide, you hold us accountable. Not us saying, no, we know better than the folks, but so let's not even give the opportunity to the people that are the voters and the taxpayers or what have you. Let's not even give them the opportunity. No, we have to practically give them the opportunity because they're insisting on it. You heard it 2, 3, 4 weeks ago here. Give it to the public. That was very impressive. That was really unusual. That was unique. We have kept our district off of the ballot for 10 years. We have the highest possible bond ratings. We have had decades of clean audits. This is something that's being done to us, as has been mentioned before, and we are reacting. We are trying to do what we need to do. I think there's a feeling that somehow if we join more people together or whatever, I'd like to say this is the most supported, most partnered urban district in this country. There's 50 years of partnerships, and we value that. You wouldn't have community learning centers, you wouldn't have LSDMCs, you wouldn't have school-based health centers if it weren't for the partnerships. You wouldn't, if you didn't have the Reds and you didn't have FCC and if you didn't have the Bengals, I'm telling you, we are partnered. It seems as though somebody thinks that something's extraordinary about a new partnership with the city. We have partnered with the city for 100 years. That's why there are recreation centers on our campuses and we don't charge them. That's why we have, and we're the second district in the United States of America that began to have resource officers in our schools. We have partnerships with the city. Now, I will say, as I said to the mayor, I'd really like that partnership to be part of maybe you paying for your crossing guards again and your school nurses again as we move into that partnership talk. But we have that partnership. I do think that there's been an on and off relationship with the business community. And I know the business community is suggesting that we maybe wait and somehow marshal our forces or whatever and go for May. If you're a political person, you know that we have less chance to pass a levy in May than you have to pass a levy in November. You also know, if you've been around a little bit of time, that invariably, whether it was the facilities master plan in 2002, it first failed. We brought it right back the same year. And in 2003, it passed. If you look at something like when I first got on the board in 2007, a very important new money levy failed. Well, when it failed, the very next year, we brought it back in 2008. These things often take 2 years. My fear is if we are going to wait, and I keep hearing this idea of maybe there's a different vision or a different partnership. Yes, let's expand our partnerships through a campaign. Let's expand our partnerships and understanding by really selling the strategic plan. If we do that, we have a chance to pass it in November, now that it's not an income tax. But even if we don't pass it, we then have a quick chance of having done that and pass it better opportunity in May. It's important that we understand that if we don't pass a levy in November, we are going to have cuts in fiscal '28, and we'll start working on those cuts in 4 months. Is that about 4 months, 6 months?
No, like next month.
Well, yeah, you want to always get an early start. And I don't want to go through another year like that and have to rebound from that. I would rather even go into May, those of you that are thinking about a May levy, a vote, I would rather go into May having spent these 100 days explaining who and what we are and risking passage, and then go to May, which often is the case, rather than not put something on the ballot, let the people decide, hold us accountable, give us direction, vote up or down, and then the new vision we have, I thought that's what the strategic plan was about. And I think that we can do this. I think we can pass it because of this November. And I want to avoid another full year of cuts and try to rebound from those cuts and start another fiscal year or a school year where we've been cutting and dismantling instead of building. And you build through a campaign. You build through going to the people and asking them for support. We cannot build it, obviously, talking among ourselves and having occasional public meetings or having prearranged little engagement periods. The ultimate engagement in a democracy is a campaign and a vote. Put it on the ballot and let the people decide. Let the people decide.
Okay. All right. So first, I want to allow the treasurer and the superintendent to say anything they might want to say. I'll add some thoughts in, and then if there's additional comments folks want to make, we'll go back through for folks. But the treasurer and superintendent share any thoughts you might have as well.
Thank you, President Craig. So hopefully the board will indulge me here for a few minutes. I know we've had a lot of discussion about the financial position of the district. As treasurer, I feel that's my wheelhouse. So I want to talk a little bit about it. So Rob, if you'll help bear with me through the slides. Second slide, please. So I think one of the things that has been maybe misunderstood, misconstrued about the discussions is that this levy request is about the strategic plan. And I feel the strategic plan is one of three main kind of planks. If you think of the three-legged stool we talk about. And I think strategic plan process is going very well. I've been participating in it along with the superintendent. I think we're making good progress. I think we're getting there. But the other two sides of a reason for new revenue are to maintain our current levels of service, both operationally and instructionally, and to complete priority facility repairs and upgrades. Regardless of strategic plan, those other two planks do not go away. If you go next slide, Rob. So I've shared this multiple times. I'll continue to share this slide. This is our revenue compared to inflation. And as you can see, once we get past really FY26, our revenue is flat, our inflationary pressures continue to grow. The gap between the red line and the blue line, that represents what the district will have to cut every year going forward. Next. This slide, again, we've shared. This is our property tax revenues over the past basically 10 years. And you can see, before property tax reform, the district got fairly regular increases in property tax values, right? The triennial updates, the reappraisals, because we were at or near the 20 mil floor, the district got additional property taxes. You can see going forward, that is not the case. We're looking at 1% or less growth. And that is by design. Be very clear. When the property tax reforms were passed by the legislature this year, the intent of that was for districts to go back on the ballot. And that anytime a district wanted additional funds, needed additional funds for anything, they were to go back on the ballot. The intent from the legislature is that school districts would be on the ballot every couple of years. You know, as Member Bolton said, we've been 10 years before a new money request. Reforms passed by legislators, signed by the governor, make that very, very hard to do going forward. At the same time, next please, our state aid continues to flatline or drop. And this is again by design. You know, we can talk about the priorities the legislature chooses to fund, but the truth of the matter is we're not getting additional state aid for the next 5 years. In fact, it slightly declines. Again, this is by design. You know, we are not the only folks in this. You know, as we talk about our financial pressures, we talk about our cost of transportation going up. That is a statewide issue, and our superintendent was on the transportation working group. You know, I don't think that group came up with a solution. You know, the proposal was do the same but spend less. That was a non-starter. But that's a statewide issue. You know, we continue to spend more money educating students with special needs. That is the thing we know. We also know the state did a study on how much it would take to educate students with special needs. And when they saw the price tag, they shelved it. So who picks up those costs? Cincinnati Public Schools does. Our district picks up those costs. Next, please. So put together, this is what our revenue picture looks like. Again, I've shared this. This is completely flat revenue. As Member Lindy said, trying to do new things, trying to maintain operations in an environment where there are no increases in revenue is incredibly difficult. And he's absolutely right. Next. So what does that mean for us? Let's look at the fiscal year 28 budget, right? So we just passed the budget coming into next year. We know our revenues are going to be about $4 million less because we used one-time revenue function. So even though we'll get a little more from property taxes from the state, that's $4 million less. One of the proposals we did to balance this year's budget is the employee furlough. I don't think anyone anticipated that being a recurring thing. That's $7 million right there. Comes back into the budget. Normal assumptions, employee step increases, which are a normal part of our operations, are about $6 million a year. And if you just do a quick inflation summary based on our services, supplies, and materials, that's about $4 million. That creates an initial budget gap of $21 million for next year. That means this board, this administration has to propose, and this board has to approve $21 million of cuts next year. That does not include the strategic plan. That does not include facility repairs. That does not include a COLA. That does not include, as some people have asked, adding back any previous reductions. Next, please. So let's talk about facility repairs. Our facilities team did a great job. Recently went back through the entire facilities repair plan, revised it. It's over $160 million over 5 years. Say we only do 10% of that next year. You know, so not a 5-year plan, but now we've made a 10-year plan. That's $16 million. That would put our budget gap at $37 million. If we decided to say, let's take 1% of our budget and dedicate that for the strategic plan, just 1%, that's $6.3 million. It creates a gap of $43.3 million that would have to be made up through reductions on top of the reductions we've made over the last 3 years. And we can talk about how many millions that is. Someone said 100 million, let's go with that. So I go to the next slide. I mean, we're looking at between $21 and $43 million of reductions next year. 21 if we, again, kick the can down the road for facilities repairs, and we choose to do nothing for the strategic plan. You know, and you'll hear the word trade-offs. We talk about trade-offs a lot. You know, it comes up in the strategic plan, it comes up in some of the bellwether talks. These are the trade-offs. What's on the grid there are the ideas that were considered by the administration, and we either chose them not to bring to the board, or we discussed them with the board and we decided not to go forward. All those things are back on the table, and probably some more things for next year. So you have to ask yourself, how much longer can we keep doing the things that we've been doing? with cutting $20 to $40 million a year. You know, how much longer can our facilities team work miracles to keep the buildings clean and functioning? How much longer can our teachers continue to do their hard work when when you have less folks? How much more can central office absorb? I can tell you, not speaking for central office, but treasurer's office itself, our budget is $1 million less than last year. You know, we have about half as many accountants as we had last year, have to do the same amount of work. You know, we have less people in payroll, less people in accounts payable. You know, those are real cuts. They're not student facing, but they're real cuts to the operation of the district. Next, please. So looking at the levy options again, I love this slide. You can see that blue line is our forecasted revenue. The red line is the same amount of money adjusted to inflation. That gap is our cuts. That gap is the cuts for the next line. And you can see each of the levy options finds a way to put it above. If you go to the next line, you can see there's a plan with the 7 mil or the 8 mil levy. There's a plan here that allows us to stay above inflation, fund facility repairs, and fund the strategic plan. Now, is it easy? No. Or is this all the money we will ever need? No. This board will still have to make tough decisions. This administration will have to make tough recommendations. But this is a plan that gets us out of an endless cut cycle and allows progress to be made, allows new things to happen. Next, please. So again, just a bigger picture. You know, what we were talking about tonight is part of a bigger picture. You know, we've talked about having a levy in November as a way to start a strategic revenue plan. You know, there in 2029, we will have to do something. We have an emergency levy that expires. We have to do something with that levy, whether that's another property tax, whether that's an income tax, whether it's something different. But that 2029 case will be so much easier to make if we have 3 years of strategic plan data to show our community what we've done with this investment. In 2031, our bond levy ends. And we know a lot of folks, we have some ideas for that. This district probably needs new facilities. But the one thing I will say is, and Member Bolton mentioned it, we kept our bond levies up this year. We just did our ratings. The one thing the ratings agencies ask about every year without fail is our cash balances. How are you keeping your cash balances? Are you cutting into them? Are you growing them? We continue to cut into our cash balances. And we are risking our bond levy and our bond rating. And when the bond rating falls, everything we borrow money for becomes that much more expensive. It's just like a homeowner and a mortgage. The higher your credit score is, the easier it is to borrow, the cheaper it is to borrow. So finally, I'll leave you with the last slide here. And this is from our financial, next slide, Rob. Thank you. This is from our financial forecast, and next board meeting, we get to redo our forecast. So we'll have a presentation next week, but this one is from February. And what you see on that grid is that revenues and expenditures stay even going through fiscal year 2030. The only reason we can show this grid and have this grid is because this board has agreed by resolution that the board will not budget more than the revenues are. And so far it's worked. For 3 years, this board has been able to make cuts to keep things going. The question is are we going to be able to keep doing that? You know, is this board going to be able to make another $21 to $43 million cuts for next year? And if not, this forecast changes dramatically. It starts to look like other districts where cash balances go negative in future years.
Thank you, President Craig. I don't have a presentation, but I do want to just share my thought and appreciate the opportunity to be able to do so. I agree with the things that have been said tonight in many ways, and I especially agree with being in a society where there's the opportunity to respectfully disagree. But I think the one thing I want to say that might be a little different from anyone in the audience, from the community, from our employees, from board members have said, is that this is a civil right for our children. And our kids are not here tonight to share what they need us and are expecting us to do on their behalf. I have 3 grandchildren currently in this school district, and I know many of you on this board have children in this school district. I just want to speak as if I were them for a moment. We're talking about the possibility of not having athletics and extracurricular activities for our children. For some parents, it's no big deal because there are so many open enrolled districts, they'll simply take their children somewhere else. We're talking about the possibility of not being able to have transportation at this level for our children. Yet, Mike mentioned the opportunity I had to work on the state's transportation work group. At the end of that, there were 2 superintendents in public schools who said we cannot and will not sign off on that, along with Senator Ingram, because it's more burden on public school districts to transport children who attend private and parochial schools. So if we lessen the transportation for our children and we broaden it for kids who are in private, parochial, and charter schools, it's not fair to the responsibility that I have, that we have at this point. We, over the last 3 budget cycles, have made millions of dollars in cuts. 30 million, 50 million, 60 million. The treasurer just shared where we might be should things remain the same and we don't act. I am imploring you to please, please vote to put a levy on the November ballot, because we are the people who have done the work. And I hear the comment about partnerships. I'm all about partnerships. I love working with people. But those are not the people who have been here the last 3, 4, 5, 10, 15, doing the work. We have respectfully asked the city, please help us with nursing. Please help us with crossing guards. Please help us with the cost of having detail officers at our games and our events. And just yet, they haven't been able to do that. I don't know what they're going to do differently in this moment. But I want you to know, and I want to be clear, we have asked for help from them. And maybe it's coming. But I think this is due tomorrow is our last opportunity. We have had to have the conversations with employees to tell them you don't have a job, or we're going to hold back on your COLA, or you're going to have to deal with a furlough. This has not been an easy thing. I'm begging you.
All right. I will. All right. I will share my thoughts, and then again, as I said earlier, if there are other folks who would want to provide any additional discussion, and then if not, we will move to a vote. I want to share, this is a challenging thing for me because on the one hand, it is about making sure our students have the resources that are needed. And I think about what are the best things and the best things in place for our students that make sure that they'll be successful. And on the other hand, it is also about whether or not this will be a successful levy campaign. And I have real concerns that the voices that would choose to try and be the loudest voices in support of this campaign have also been the voices that have caused the most disruption over this last week, have also been the voices that have spoke down the district more than any board member could ever do, have spoke down the hardworking folks who have dedicated a lot of time and effort in our district in a way that no board member could ever do. And so I think there is a space in this place where we have to be both cognizant of the need And the need is heavy. And for those who are just now coming to this party and trying to find out what our need is, this is closing schools if we don't pass a levy. This is cutting down programs. This is getting rid of things like athletics and music and art and dance in these schools. These are things that people just literally gave us gifts for a few days ago that we will then be basically saying we got 1 year of it and that's it, because we can't support it. But it is also about bringing more people to the table to support us by using something other than division to do so. And what I have a real huge problem with, and again, my vote is going to be, it's a balancing act for me, and in all times, I've always said I will vote where I need to vote to support our students. But what I do implore is that if this levy passes, if this levy vote passes today, that all of this rhetoric that is meant to attack and antagonize and to be deep belittling and disrespectful to both members of this board, but more importantly, to folks who may just disagree with you. That's not bringing folks together. That's not being collaborative. And I get why folks want to do it, and I get the passion that folks have, and I really, again, appreciate that. And I, too, have questions of whether or not some of these folks who have now come in and say they want to be our champions and our supporters will actually show up. I have real questions about all of that. But I don't think we build the district of tomorrow by doing the things that we did yesterday. And those things that we did yesterday were divisive. So like for me, the vote about the levy isn't so much about whether or not I think the levy is a good idea or whether or not I think the levy will meet the needs of the district, although I will say I think, realistically, meet the needs of the district is still probably not the best way of phrasing that, because it won't meet what our ultimate needs are, because that still requires more investment from the state on a lot of things that we are not going to get state investment on. And I have real reasons to have concerns about what's going to be coming down the pipe with some of our state races and some of the potential legislation that will be coming out of our state house over the next couple of years. But what I hate to see is that we did something that hasn't been done in Hamilton County, and by we, I don't mean us as a board. I mean those so-called folks who said they want to support our efforts did something that no one has done since I have lived in Hamilton County, and that is 40-some years, is unite the GOP and the Democratic Party against us. And I think it's so highly disrespectful to getting something done to put these two opposing parties together in a means and a ways, and then ask the folks on this diocese to suddenly think that they're going to have some great level of support out of this. I understand people are very passionate about wanting the levy, and very passionate about the type of levy, and they're very passionate about why. And those are all really understandable things. But what I do say is this: if this passes today, that needs to step aside for the betterment of our children. That needs to step aside so we can do the things that are in our strategic plan that we're coming out with. That needs to step aside so that we can actually build up our credit, so that when we come back in 2029, and when we come back in 2031, and when we come back in 2032, because we will be back in 2032, also, that we're able to have a real conversation that has real partners at the table, and that is not just us doing it alone every single time. See, my problem is that we're in a different era, we're in a different space. You cannot just go to folks who have always contributed and say, give me, and they just give you anymore. You do need to come in and say what you're going to do, why it's important, and who's with you. So again, I'm not here to say that folks can't have a difference of opinion. That's really easy to do, to sit there and tell folks that you can't have a difference of opinion. What I am asking is that if we are truly caring about our students first, that the conversation is about our students first. That the conversation is about what we will do with these dollars to benefit our students first. What we need to do in our district to build partnerships in our community so that our children can come first. See, I really implore those folks who sit there and want to say they champion our children first, but talk about our adults before they ever mention our child, to change the rhetoric. What I really want to applaud those folks who say, I care a lot about my own interests and my own pocketbook, but guess what? I care more about that student who needs the necessary tools in our classrooms to be successful. I care about that person who says, you know what, it may take me an extra hour out of my day, but I'm gonna come down to a school and I'm gonna sit in the school and tutor. I'm gonna sit in the school and read with students. I'm gonna sit in the school and volunteer for our various programs that we have tons of people doing. We had a huge group of folks come to the city, and one of their stops was CPS. That's 30,000 people came to the city, and one of their stops was CPS. If we want to build a relationship in the future, 7 of their stops should be CPS. If we want to build something that will be bigger and better, every school district should be asking, how do I educate my teachers so they teach better in a classroom the way CPS did? How do I work with my principals to give them the development so that I can send my principal down there to Cincinnati so that they're ready to be leading a school? That doesn't come by being divisive. That will not happen if we are fighting amongst ourselves. So at the end of the day, no matter who votes where, no matter where we stand at the end of this vote, I implore those folks who say they support our district to truly show up with a message of support before you step to anybody with the message of division. Because I know every single person on this diocese had to vote a really hard vote not even a month ago about how we're going to move this district forward in the budget this year. I know that almost every single member of this board has had to sit there and hear from folks in every spectrum of the world in this last week. And if it was anything like the calls I've got from our wonderful folks with the cameras, it was nearly every day. And guess what? We're not, I don't mean to make this about us, because it's not. It's not about us. It's about our students. But I say that to say, we're going to have to make hard decisions even with this levy. We're going to have to say some things cannot continue even with this levy. We're going to have to say things are going to need to change, and then we're going to need to do better. And we need to hold ourselves to a higher standard than where we are today. Because where we are today is not the levels we should be at. And if we are not willing to hold ourselves to a higher standard so that we can then hold our students to a higher standard so that we're all achieving, then, I mean, again, what are we fighting the levy for? So again, I implore us to do a better job of being less divisive and more truly an inclusive district, if we're actually going to use those words, and recognize that we may have differences of opinions, we may have differences of philosophies, but at the end of the day, if we all care about kids, then we'll stop doing the little mannerisms and the little gestures and the little silly posturing, and actually start focusing on what our kids need more than anything. So I'll leave my message there. I will see, and if anyone else has any additional discussion, I know Board Member Bolton and then, or,
Go ahead.
okay, Dr. Moffitt and then Board Member Bolton.
So I just wanted to, I think there were several comments around, in response to my comment around partnerships, and I want to be very clear. I'm not just talking about partnerships with the city and the county. I do hope that they do what we've talked about doing over the past week, but I'm also talking about partnerships like with the Oaks or in areas where we are not strong. And to me, career tech is one of those areas. I've said this before. I said this the last week, and I've been actually saying this for months. Our kids deserve more career tech options. And I'm talking about not trying to do what we've always done. And so the presentation, I've asked for a plan for sustainability for months. To me, a levy is a financial strategy, but it is not talking about sustainability. How are we going to really effectively change what we're doing so that we are sustainable? And and I'm not saying that we shouldn't. The sign right there says do our job, and our job is about income and revenue. Yeah, hold it up again. Thank you. So our job is about financial stability, but that also talks about not just putting levies on the ballot, but how do we actually maintain financial stability long-term so that our kids get the best academics. We cannot ignore the fact that our academics needs to improve for the community's sake and for our kids' sake. And so I'm looking for a sustainability plan because I do too have grandkids in this district and I want them to stay. And I also know that the financial impact of what we're deciding does impact them as well. So I am listening to not only just this demographic of CFT union members, but also other parents when I go drop off my grandkids, other people when I'm at the grocery store who stop and share things with me. I don't think that the decisions just lie within these 7 board members, but I think that we represent people that voted for us. And we sometimes have additional information that the public may or may not be either able to access with clarity, or we have additional information. So we're not coming at this blindly. I'm not making my decision in a silo. When I also say partnerships, I'm saying that 1 or 2 board members alone should not know what the plan is. I specifically asked this administration last board meeting, what was the campaign plan for any levy? And now we got a whole team that's ready to go tomorrow. But I asked that question. I asked it from a financial standpoint, and I asked it from an actual levy, feet on the ground standpoint. And now we have one. But I asked that last week. And so it didn't manifest itself when I called the day after we voted for the levy. We had a levy that had passed because there was so much. You all came before and said, put a levy on the ballot. And now you're saying, not that levy, another one. And so I absolutely have the utmost respect for every single staff member, union member in our district, because you all are in the trenches. And I try my hardest to get by and see and listen to at any moment in time as many as I can. And I've heard from some of your members that have different opinions as well than the ones that come to the meetings and hold up signs and speak. So I am listening. I promise you I am. I'm sure I'll get another microaggressive email bullying me, telling me that it's coming. But I am listening. And I promise you, I think that we're up here making decisions, also listening to other people who voted for us and who also stop us and say, I want you to consider this and that. Can you explain this to me? Can you explain that to me? So it's not done in a silo. When I also speak about partnerships, I also mean that all board members need to have all of the information when it is available. And perhaps you all don't know, but that hasn't always happened. So it's bigger. My comment was not just for external partnerships, but also partnerships within the 7 of us as well. I am very concerned about the passage of a levy because of the actions in the past week and the intentional confusion that has been infused. So if you don't know what I'm talking about, then I'm glad you don't. But there has been intentional chaos, and it's unfortunate. Happy to take it offline. So I'm still a little conflicted, but our students deserve our absolute best. I think they deserve more robust programming than what we are providing, and I hope and pray that we can get there. Thanks.
All right. See Board Member Bolden and Board Member Armbruster, and then if there's no one else, we will take a vote.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity. I had a similar feeling about some of the animosity and what have you tonight. Actually had some directed to me from the board table. Here's what I did sense though tonight, and maybe I'm just old, and I noticed more kind of intimate things. Tonight, I don't know if anybody fully appreciates that the person that knows the most about school funding and the person that is certainly right of center of everybody on this board, Senator Blessing, exercising a political profile and courage. He just went totally against the powers that be of his own party. That's what I noticed about, we want more support, we want more partnerships. That was stunning to me. It's not just that I've been on the board for 18 years. I've been in politics here in Hamilton County when Hamilton County was red. I almost wept when I read his letter. That was remarkable. And also, forgive me, but the bit of rapprochement, if you will, between President Sellers and Chairman Lindy tonight over one important piece, and that is working together on the strategic plan. I'm sorry, I didn't miss that moment. And I don't think that's very easy for either one of them to do what either one of them did, except both of them just demonstrated that they love the district more than they're going to want to fight with each other. That's remarkable. That is frigging remarkable. That is integrity on both sides. I don't need the business community to tell me what to do. I don't need the university to tell me what to do. I don't need anybody to tell me. The only people that tell me what to do, very frankly, since my parents are dead, the only people are the folks that are the voters. And I think they want to be having an opportunity. I also want to say, we haven't been able, I'm sorry the Vice President had to step out, but we're not allowed to run the levy. We're not allowed to even do anything. Superintendent, treasurer, I mean, there are rules and law, and there's also this little special arrangement we have with some folks called Coast. Tonight, we heard Case through, not surprisingly, Harriet Russell, Case stand up and say, we're ready to run the campaign. Because, and it's my understanding, there's a date certain as they're meeting and starting. That's great. Because they are the folks that actually run our campaigns, because we can't. And finally, and close to finally, I really want to emphasize what Ben mentioned, and that is, as we move through the strategic plan, it makes perfect sense to have a third party lead us through that effort. And I think that it makes not only sense to have the third party, but something that the Vice President mentioned. And we've heard it out publicly too. We've passed a budget, we've got a 3-year plan, a 4-year plan, a 5-year plan. We've just bled over every line item. But very frankly, I would rather go into this year with a plan to spend that is a proactive, dynamic, forceful plan to spend, trying to communicate it in a campaign environment, than spend the next school year sitting here making cuts. You want a positive message, something that builds more partnership and unity and coalition. Stop making us sit here and cut. Create a plan to spend, a plan for a vision. The strategic plan gives us that. If we don't pass this levy, we're not going to have a strategic plan. We're going to have to wait another year. I've got at least one more kid in our family who still has a few years to go in this system. And I'm not going to tell Clara, very frankly, well, honey, while we were waiting, you didn't get to do this at your school, the same school your mom and dad went to, School for the Creative and Performing Arts. No, Eve couldn't do that because we have to wait. We have to do something else. Let's not spend another year cutting. Let's spend another year envisioning and engaging the public with a proactive plan, and indeed use the strategic plan as the platform that it is. And let's honor the moment we had. We had a rough time tonight, but let's honor the moment where you have Senator Blessing, where you have President Sellers, Member Lindy. This was the actual new threshold, folks. And it wasn't manufactured. It happened. And I'm embracing that moment. Forgive me for being a cup half full, but I watched it and I was moved. Please let the people decide. Thank you.
All right, and then we have board member Armbruster, and then if seeing no others, hopefully we'll then take a vote.
I just want to take a minute to go back to Treasurer Guston's presentation, because I think this decision needs to be grounded in numbers and facts, not just emotions. So if we can go back to the, now I'm blinking because I don't have these slides. The one where you had all of the different projections in the forecast for like inflation and the increased costs and potential cuts. Right. Oh, no, sorry, Rob, back.
I think slide 7, Rob.
Yes, I believe so. Yes, okay. So I want to better understand this because I've seen a lot of different numbers, and I know that there's no way to actually confidently give me a straight number because inflation changes and all of these things. So can you walk me through, because the initial slide had a projection of like a 3.2% increase, and it was a revenue gap projection of around 18 million. Is that correct?
Yeah, if you go back to slide 3.
Yes, this one.
So I think Mr. Cross had asked me this actually, same thing. So the reason we throw this slide out is it's just keeping up with inflation.
Absolutely.
Right? But this slide takes the entire budget, right? So we're baselining back to 2022 and say, if you use fiscal year 2022 as a baseline,
Correct.
and apply inflation all the way through. And you see, the lines stay pretty close until 26, and then they start to diverge. What has really happened is we've stayed below inflation to this point, because we've continued to cut. We made massive cuts this year. But the point of this slide is you watch those two lines diverge. Right? If you go to slide 7, I tried to say, okay, that was based on starting in fiscal year 2022.
Got it.
If we start slide 7, fiscal year 27, the budget we just passed, which doesn't keep pace of inflation. That's why we dropped, roughly 60 million. If we say, okay, say this year's budget is good, what happens next year? And so the first thing we look at is, we know. We had about $6.8 million in one-time revenue this year. We'd made some one-time sales. We'll say 7. The forecast from February said we were going to get about $3 million in revenue anyway next year. 7 minus 3 is 4. Okay. Second thing we did for balancing the budget this year that I would consider a one-time thing is the employee furlough. And we counted around $7 million in savings in that.
Yep.
But I don't think anyone here or out there anticipated the furlough being a thing that would continue on and on.
Absolutely.
Right? So that's 11 million right there. Every year, and I think as long as we've done finance, we've talked about step increases. So most unions have a step increase built in. This is not a COLA. This is just people going from step 1 to step 2, step 10 to 15. Their increase is built in. That's generally around $6 million. It's probably higher now, but I'll use that number. And then the fourth number is I just took from our forecast, I did not take employee salaries or benefits. I just took services, supplies, and materials. It's about $110 million every year. I did apply a 4% inflation to that. So that gets you your $4 million. That's how I got to the $21 million.
Super helpful, thank you. Can you, again, just remind us, I think the total over the 5 years for the 7 mil was about 330 million. So what would that be for just fiscal year '28?
So it's 66.3 million a year.
Okay,
First collection would be in January. So we would
Right.
get kind of an initial half of that, so about 33 million.
so Rob, stay on 7 for me for a second, sorry. Okay, so if the voters chose to approve the levy,
Yes.
we could potentially get an additional $64 million
Yeah,
to
you
help
won't- you
cover
won't
this
get
$20
100%
million
collections.
gap, right?
Yes.
Okay, so that's roughly, I'm not a numbers person, but that's roughly $40 million in funding that would be available for things like facility repairs, strategic plan, COLA.
Yes.
Okay,
Now, I would recommend, I mean, we're getting down the road here. I think I said this a couple times. I would recommend if the voters approve a levy, that we strategically underspend in the first couple of years.
Absolutely.
The levy is going to bring in the same amount every year. I think you were right
Correct.
to say 64. You know, we never get 100% collections, so it's very, very astute there. But my recommendation is you underspend
Right.
first 2 years, try to break even in year 3, and that
Right.
allows you not to have to make cuts.
so there are a couple things I want to talk through, fact-based. And thank you to President Craig for bringing this to everyone's attention. But I think it's really important for the entire public, everyone listening, to know that we have roughly 34,000 students. So does Cleveland. They have about 33. And I believe their budget was 1.5 billion. Is that correct? Okay. Columbus has roughly 45,000 students, so maybe a third more than us. Theirs is $1.9 billion. So for the people listening that believe and have this narrative that we are being greedy by considering this levy, think about that. We have better outcomes for our students and half, at a minimum, half the budget. So let's please stop that narrative. I think one of the things that partners rightfully are asking us is, if you push forward with this levy, are you just going to continue, add back the things you've already cut, continue things as they go on? Superintendent, I would like to give you the opportunity to address that concern from people of what does new money actually look like for this district, and are we committed to changing our operations to improve student outcomes?
I appreciate the question. It's a fantastic question. I think we have kind of covered this the last few meetings, and then I'll start with what Mr. Cross had said earlier in this meeting for particular areas, which includes funding the strategic plan, which priority 1 focuses in on improving student outcomes. Priority 2 and priority 3 help with that through the wraparound services that we provide. And then priority 4 holds us accountable to the financial and the operational, how we do business piece. I am committed to the strategic plan. There is more work to be done, but in a nutshell, I believe we have the gist of what that strategic plan is going to be. So yes, I am committed to doing business differently, and I'm excited about doing business differently.
And I'm sorry for making you repeat things, because I have heard that from you, and I do believe you. And I just want this whole discussion to come back to a very rational place. And I think these are rational questions we're getting from the community of, like, you're being greedy, you don't have a plan for this money. Those things are false. So no matter where this vote goes, I want to be very clear that this district is not greedy. We need this money, and there is a plan for it. Now, is that plan finalized before we are putting anything on the ballot? Unfortunately, no. Some of that is not our fault. Some of it we could probably take some blame for. But the reality is, the proof is in the numbers. So please stop assuming that's a narrative. The last I will ask, on the other side of things, if we do not get the votes to put this on the ballot, or if we do and it fails, at what point are we at risk of fiscal emergency?
It's a great question. Yeah, so it's really, again, it's a hard to answer, but it is really about, I hate to say it, this board's willingness to make extremely difficult cuts. It sounds flippant. I mean, we could be in fiscal emergency next year. There's no doubt about it. We could go years. But the thing you have to ask, looking at the other people up here, is how deep is this board willing to make cuts before they say we can't do it? Are we willing to take transportation back to state minimums? Are we willing to get rid of athletics? Are we willing to get rid of magnet schools? And then the next level, are we, I mean, these are cuts people don't even think about. Are we going to scale back the Montessori program? Are we going to get rid of high schools of choice? Are we going to go to the teachers union and say we have to increase class sizes dramatically? Like there are lots of horrible cuts, right? There are some things we can't cut. We have to pay off our debts for sure. We have to continue to do the state minimum of transportation, including transporting, charter and non-public students. We have to continue to provide legally required services for special needs students. But everything else is on the table. And so as long as this board can sit there and continue to cut and reduce, to close schools, to consolidate schools, you can go for a long time. But what I've said for a while is, there's two versions of CPS. There's a CPS that everyone in this room wants to be a part of. We've all chosen to be a part of it. Superintendent and I have chosen to work here. You've chosen to put yourselves out there to run for office to represent this district. The folks out in the audience have chosen to come work here, to send their kids to here, all those things. That is different than the minimum district that we would have. And so at what point does the board say, we can't do it anymore? We can't cut anymore because the CPS that's left after these cuts is not the CPS that any of us want to be a part of. It's a shell of a district that does the bare minimum. It's your stereotypical urban school district that's not innovative, that's not offering opportunities, that's doing the bare minimum legally to survive. And I don't think anyone up here wants that. And so your option is, if the board can't come to cuts, we only have honestly, we're going to end the year with about $43 million in cash. That won't go very far. That's probably less than a month of operating. And so if we can't close the gap, we'll be in fiscal emergency very quickly.
Thank you. I appreciate your honest and wonderful assessment of where we are. I think it's obvious, based on all of my questions tonight, that I have really struggled with this decision. And I think at the end of the day, it is our responsibility as a board to trust the numbers and understand the severity of the cuts, even if those partners that are willing to come to the table haven't gotten around to understanding that yet. I think we have. And my ask is that these partners continue to hold us accountable and have the hard conversations to ensure, if we ask for new money, we are going to do the things we said we would do. And it is not just reverting back to what we've been doing. But we need you at the table. But we also need to not go in fiscal emergency. And this is a very confusing situation for me, but I believe that the district cannot survive a short-term cut based on the numbers that Mr. Gustin has presented tonight and still move forward. I am asking our partners that have spent 600 minutes on the phone with me in the last week to not back down and to continue to hold us accountable. continue to show up to the table, show up for our students, and make sure we are responsible partners with these funds, as long as the voters approve it. But it is not going to be easy, and I don't think any of the divisive energy in this room has any place in there moving forward.
All righty. Well, we've had ample discussion, and I believe it is time to vote. So Treasurer Augustine.
Okay, so just a reminder, the resolution we're voting on is a resolution determining to proceed with submission of an additional 7 mil property tax levy. Put forth by Ms. Bolton, seconded by Mr. Crossett. So, Ms. Armbruster?
Yes.
Ms. Bolton?
Yes.
Mr. Crossett?
Yes.
Mr. Lindy?
Yes.
Ms. Mapp?
No.
Vice President Moffitt? President Craig?
Yes.
That would be 5 votes in favor at this point. Abstain.
So Treasurer Augustine, can you read the results?
Yes, 5 votes in favor, 1 no, and 1 abstention.
All righty, so the measure passes. I'm going to do a reminder one more time, and if I hear another person who can't seem to control themselves, I will have security come and escort you out. This is a place we're going to hold decorum and respect, and if folks want to chit-chat and yell and scream, take yourself outside and do so. We just sat here and talked about how we have to be creating a space that is inclusive and respectful, and if you all cannot do so, we don't need you in this room, and you can leave. All right, so with that in mind, we will move on to the next part of our agenda. I'm going to ask our Chief Audit Executive to come in and welcome her to come down for a quick presentation. You have the floor, Ms. Robertson. Or no, Ms. Haverkos, I'm sorry.
Good evening, members of the Board of Education, Treasurer Augustine, Superintendent Murphy. You probably can hear me as she takes a quick break. I appreciate the opportunity to speak with you all this evening. My name is Lauren Haverkos, and I lead the Internal Audit Department here at Cincinnati Public Schools. So to the first slide, I always like to begin my presentation by framing the conversation and also reminding everyone the role of internal audit. So the purpose of this presentation is to restate that purpose and then further explain what our fiscal 2027 internal audit plan looks like for the year, as well as my goals that accompany that plan. And for context, this is something that happens at this time every year as we kick off the start of a new fiscal year. So both of these items were just presented at our most recent audit committee meeting on July 22nd, and I'm very appreciative of the support and formal approval of both of those items. So you may remember that I last presented to you all at the May 18th board meeting where I wrapped up our fiscal 26 internal audit plan and shared with you what was to come, which was our risk assessment and our audit methodologies that we use from that time planning from the May and June timeframe to develop our annual plan. So I want to provide a quick update for the board and for our public as we approach these next slides. So the next couple of slides summarize our audit methodology, which that really just means how do we assess risk in this organization? And honestly, I think that's something on top of a lot of our minds with all of these changes. So the quick summary of this process is we evaluate and define an audit universe, which is everything that could be audited. We then identify our risks and our inputs through various measures, which I'll explain here briefly. And then further, we rate our risks on an impact and likelihood scale, map that out on heat maps, and then finally result is our internal audit plan that is based on selecting projects we've prioritized based on risk methodologies and measures. So again, this audit universe just briefly summarizes 8 main components as we have defined them as internal auditors. And within these main 8 components are 84 functional areas. So we have actually taken a deep dive, and you can see in the appendix of this slide, these heat maps where we have analyzed the risk at each one of those levels. So on the next slide, I won't read this to you all, of course, but these are all the inputs for our risk methodologies. The one that's worth really noting this year was the participation and the feedback and the collaboration that we had between speaking with each one of you, board members, all of our community audit members, sat down and had concerted conversations around what their expectations look like for the district, where from their business mindsets, and then also meetings with each member of the senior leadership team, superintendent, our treasurer, and each of the directors within the financial side of things in the treasurer's office. So we take that information, we then do this calculation, which is the impact, what could happen, and the severity of what could happen if there are not controls in place. And then we couple that with likelihood. How likely is that to actually occur? And in a season where we have a lot of changes happening, changes to budgets, changes to staffing, that likelihood factor becomes something with even greater measure. So with all of that work, we take hundreds of conversations and components and summarize it very simply here. So this risk heat map shows those top 8 areas at the highest level of categorization. However, as I mentioned, the final slides of this presentation do break down each of those 8 areas and those 84 functional areas for those who are interested in a deeper dive. So the result of all of this work, this risk-based methodology, is an internal audit plan. With any type of work that we do as this organization, we all know there are limited resources, and therefore, in our world, we must apply them to those of the greatest risk and the highest priority. So what you see before you is a simple breakdown of each of those projects within the plan. However, I invite you all to follow the link and to read through a bit more about the work that we will be performing this year. I will take a brief moment on this next slide, though, to highlight 2 aspects of the internal audit plan. And the first aspect is an advisory project. This talks about essentially saying what is the risk assessment as we move forward. So one thing I overlooked in my earlier slide was our risk assessment is based on the information available in the moment. And in this moment, or as of a few weeks ago, our budget for fiscal 27 was still being finalized, and our strategic plan is still in that finalization as well. With those components coming to fruition, we think that this project here, which is based on further analyzing that strategic plan and seeing how those budget impacts come to fruition, we are able to provide a few outcomes from this work. Advisory work results in management guidance, where we work with our partners and give feedback as independent consultants. But this will also help us further identify risks and hone in on potential gaps from some of these staffing and budgetary changes. So once those have been identified, you can see they flows perfectly to this other side, which is agile auditing, where we perform audits that are targeted on the most important, highest priority risks. We also will select projects that are based on audit recommendations that have recently concluded and can be validated for their efficacy. So ultimately, I think the whole point in the takeaway from this year's audit plan is that we want to stay in lockstep as the risks adapt throughout the year, provide timely feedback to management, our audit committee, and our board for accountability and for continuous improvement. So I'll close by just briefly sharing my audit, goals for the year, and those are really very closely tied with the internal audit plan itself. One major change, though, is how I am sharing this year is much less activity-based and activity-focused, not just do the plan. What does that plan do? What is the impact of that work? And why do we care? And why is it so, so critical, especially in this moment that we are in as an organization? So I'd be happy to further expand, answer any questions you all have. And thank you for bearing with me, as I know I spoke quickly, but it is in the interest of time.
I just wanted to note that it's always nice to have our chief audit executive come in for a breath of fresh air and sunshine to our meetings. But it is something that we've been trying to make an active part more of the board meeting, is to have more of a place to highlight the work of the audit, internal audit. Are there any questions? Board Member Crossett?
No, I didn't really have a question. I did want to just highlight that our internal audit department has been cited as one of the most robust internal audit departments, not only in Ohio, but I think in the Midwest. We're very blessed to have a good team. Also, I think it's worth noting that the internal audit department works closely with the treasurer's office, and we have had clean audit opinions for the last 15 years, and it's just an incredible streak of accurate and informative financial reporting, transparency, and we never have to question the numbers. You can use those numbers to talk from, so it's very helpful, and just wanted to point out how much success we've had in the past and look forward to more in the future. Thank you.
Board Member Bolden?
Yes, thank you very much for the presentation. Could we go to, I think it's slide 8, I think that's that risk matrix. You know I love this chart, and I think I need this for my life. I need a risk matrix heat map, because a whole bunch is way over here. And it's fascinating to me what is over there. And is there a kind of a way that you could explain this to me a little bit more, of how you're rating? I know following slides do, but tell me just a little bit more about this, because I think this is the sort of thing, and I've said this before at the audit committee, where we could kind of use this to do more things. And I know you guys have been including the internal auditor chief in some of the planning and thinking and talking in terms of risk. But if you could just explain that chart a little bit more for me.
Absolutely, be happy to. Rob, could you go to the very final slide of this slide deck? So I just think things are all, to me, in relativity matters.
Okay.
So we actually put together this slide to compare what the results of our assessment were last year to this year. And I think there is a significant shift of all of our components of our district to that upper right quadrant. And I don't think that should come as a surprise to probably anyone who's been watching and participating in these conversations. And it really is, from our perspective, a heightened risk as we look at our information technology, our financial matters, and human resources really rose to the top of the assessment this year. It's not to say that there isn't still risk, and I also will couple and frame for the public that risk and opportunity, there's strength and there's weakness. There's two sides. Not all risk is bad. And I do think, though, is in this environment, as we see heightened risk, there is an opportunity then to really focus in on how do we strengthen our controls, redesign processes to ensure that they're working appropriately and effectively. So given this scenario that we're in right now, we can still persist and have a successful outcome. So really, I think, to me, as I see this shift, it is representative of our current state. And I think the other component of what you mentioned, Ms. Bolton, was it's not just for auditors. We may come in and say, ooh, there should be an audit in X area due to risk. It also is informative to the board and the audit committee and to our leadership team to say, oh, we all are comfortable in understanding the risk. We don't need an audit to validate that there is, in fact, a potential gap. We actually will then, instead, as management, the board or audit committee, make a recommendation or take action to put some additional resources or redesign that area.
Thank you, and I like the comparison, and I'm glad that we kind of explained a little bit more that this, very frankly, if any organization probably was doing this, and
Yes.
and many do,
Yes.
they would have all seen that kind of shift in this past year, which is all part of this whole environment in which we're living that's so confusing and scary. I do think I want to emphasize as well the idea that, as Mr. Crossett pointed out, and Mr. Crossett gave 15-some years to the Community Audit Committee, we are so fortunate to have the Community Audit Committee. We are very fortunate to have your department, as small as it is, with such skilled people, and we're one of the few districts that have it. It is part of the, if I can say this, it is part of the structure of the financial house, if you will, of the district. And of course, you know how I think about you as being so important to the district. So thank you. Thank you very much. We are very lucky. Thanks. And thanks for explaining this a little bit more.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank
Appreciate
you.
it.
Any other board comments? No? I just want to thank you again for continuing to kind of evolve what our internal audits work looks like and the benefit it brings back for our district. I know, and especially as we head into this kind of next pathway of our district, we need to be able to show that we're not just looking at that we didn't get it wrong, but that we're finding ways to get it right. And I think that's one of the roles that internal audit has done. I will want to just highlight one extra thing also that I think has been part of the path that internal audit has been working through is the recommendations from past years. And I know this is something I think our members of the board who are on the finance committee get to see also from being on the audit committee. We as a district have to both make an effort to address the things that have been the longstanding issues that have been going on for 10, 15 years now, and making sure that we're addressing the new things that might come about. And I think that's part of the effort of the last couple of years has also been about really closing down those things that have been thorny items. I will say that gets harder and harder each year because of just some things that are like systemic changes in the department, other things that might affect it. But I appreciate all the hard work you all are doing to keep that in our minds and keep that in our faces there as we make other decisions for the district.
Thank you. Thank you all so much.
All righty. As we transition to a quick summary of our next presentation, come on down. I just want to note that Board Member Lindy had to leave for childcare reasons. And so he is headed back to take care of his two kids while his wife and mother and all the other fun folks who would be able to help him are not in town. So rather than make him bring his kids up to the board meeting and endure with us, he has been the nice parent and let them stay home. And so he's going back to care for them. I will turn it over.
All right. Good evening, everyone. I'm Amanda Vargo. I'm one of the testing and assessment managers. And I was asked to come give you a brief overview of the report card metrics. Our state report card is slated to come out in mid-September. This is a very detailed slide deck. We are not going to go through the whole slide deck. We are going to do the quick hits tonight, although I know everyone really wants me to. Given the late hour, we're just going to do a very high-level overview as a little primer. Anticipation of the report card coming out. So Rob, bear with me because I'm gonna have you jump around a little bit here. So where we're at right now, the state report card for the 25-26 school year will come out in mid-September. Currently, we are in the submitting and validation phase of that. So the accountability team is working on submitting our data. After the data is submitted, the state applies the report card business rules. We go into the secure data center and we go in and we validate that data. And then we look for corrections, we resubmit, and it's an ongoing process until those submission windows close and ultimately the report card is published. So we're in that validation phase right now. Go ahead, Rob. This is where the report card will be published when it comes out. One more. Perfect. All right, so our overall rating, 6 components go into our overall rating. The 2 biggest ones, they're weighted the same and they're weighted the highest, are achievement and progress. And then there are 4 additional components: graduation, college career workforce readiness, early literacy, and then the gap closing component. Those 4 are all weighted the same at 12.5% each. And then those percentages from each of those contribute to the overall rating. I'm going to actually have you jump to slide 11, Rob, if you don't mind. So the achievement component, this is the component that takes our test scores. It applies, it only counts for our students that meet the accountable inclusion business rules. Each test score includes a weighting. It's divided by the maximum, which is the top 2% of districts and schools in the state. And then it comes up with a percentage. That's our achievement component. I'm going to have you jump to slide 17, please, Rob. So progress is a measure of growth. This is a complicated one. It's based on a very complicated statistical model, but it looks at two things. It looks at statistical certainty that students grew more, less, or as expected, and then it looks at the impact of that. This is a 3-year weighted average for this component. The really good news for our 25-26 school year is we dropped a really, really bad year of data from the 22-23 progress component. So we're in a much better position with our 25-26 growth data, which will count for 50% of the calculation. The 2 years that we know are much stronger than they've been in the past. So that's a good position to be in. So again, achievement and progress are weighted the same. They're weighted the most. Rob, I'm going to have you jump down to slide 22, please. Yeah, there we go. Okay, so gap closing is the one that's a beast. There's like a million pieces in gap closing. So that includes our subgroup achievement data for subgroups that have at least 15 students. The performance index calculation, it includes growth data for our subgroups. It includes graduation data for our subgroups. English language learners, whether or not they have improved and or met proficiency on the OELPA exam, as well as chronic absenteeism and our gifted indicators. There's a total possibility of 75 points in this one, but not every district is going to get every point. It depends on the subgroups that are available. Can you jump down to slide 33, please? I do want to spend just a second talking about early literacy because this is the one component that does have a change from the previous report card. So we have, there's 3 pieces in early literacy. There's proficiency in 3rd grade reading, promotion to 4th grade, and improving K-3 literacy. Can you go to the next slide, please, Rob? So there was a bill that was passed in October of 2025 that actually changed the calculation for the 4th grade promotion component. So previously, any kid who actually physically moved from 3rd grade to 4th grade was included in the numerator. So we were always very, very close to 100% on that. The state changed that calculation. So now it is only kids who meet that promotable score, either on the 3rd grade Ohio State test or on an alternate test, which for us is the iReady reading test. So that is going to drop our percentage and the percentage across the state for that. But to compensate, hit the next slide, please, if you don't mind. Oh, one more. Keep going. Keep going. Nope, hold on. There's that's what I'm looking for. They actually shifted the scale. So the scale is going to be different. So if this rule would have been in place for the 24-25 year, we were 2 stars under the rules that were in place then. We would have remained 2 stars based on the shift in. So we will see like a different baseline for that percentage rating this year, but hopefully the change in scale is enough to kind of compensate so it's not tanking the overall component. Can you go to slide 43, please? So the graduation component, keep in mind that graduation and the college career workforce readiness component are always a year lagging. So this is actually data for not kids who cross the stage in 26, but kids who cross the stage in 25. It's a weighted graduation rate. 60% is the 4-year rate, 40% is the 5-year rate. And then if you can jump on down to slide 47. The last component is the college career workforce and readiness. So this is the 4-year cohort that crossed the stage in 25, and the percentage of that cohort that met one of the 11 acceptable college career workforce readiness indicators. And that is a percentage. So that is a very, very high level overview of what will go into our report card when it comes out in mid-September.
All righty. Thank you for that. And again, I know very high level. So for folks who may have more extensive questions, I think it might serve a little bit better once we have our actual scores. I also want to note that some other things, and it's always going to be true for our report card, are measures of things that have already happened, like graduation rates, that have nothing to do with the things we are doing in this past school year. But others are also, to your point, measures of multiple years. So it's a very wonderfully normal, nonsensical system, but it's the only system we have. So, any questions or comments, Vice President Moffitt?
I do have a lot of questions, but I really, honestly, with respect for time, would really love to have it during a SACAL, Student Achievement Committee of the Whole, where we have A, more time, and B, kind of academics baked into that, that meeting. But I'll give you a few that I would like, and I guess some of them are actually for the superintendent. So I don't even know where this is, because this presentation, when I saw 53 slides, I was kind of zoned out, like, oh my God, is Amanda really talking about presenting on all that? But, so do we have an owner for the components of the report card, Superintendent Murphy, like achievement? Is that the chief academic officer? Attendance, that's the student services, graduation? Like, who owns each component?
Yes, we absolutely do. So K-3 literacy, Dr. Smith, she doesn't stand alone, but yes.
Okay.
The attendance is done through our positive school culture team, working with Children's Hospital throughout the school year, many of the school years. The CCWMR is Assistant Superintendent Randolph and her
So,
team.
hold on, no acronyms, because public doesn't know acronyms.
I'm sorry.
So I'm thinking of just the report card components. So like for graduation, who's owning that one?
Assistant Superintendent Randolph.
Okay. And then for like, so we got, I'm just thinking of the components. Thank you for finding that for me.
Slide 5.
Early literacy. I couldn't figure out where it was in the thing, so early literacy. There we go.
Deputy Smith.
Oh, okay, that's Dr. Smith. And then, so just go through them. Let's go through them.
So probably the achievement and the progress go with Dr. Smith. Early literacy, Dr. Smith. The college, career, workforce, and military readiness, Amy Randolph. Gap closing, Dr. Smith. But when I'm saying Dr. Smith, but she does not stand alone, if that makes sense. I hope that makes sense.
Well, yeah, I guess so. I'll save my more detailed questions for, because I'm thinking like, do we have like one owner of graduation, one owner of the areas of the report card? Do we have like ownership of that designates like one leader?
The owner of graduation is Amy Randolph.
Okay.
The owner of the college, career, workforce readiness component is Amy Randolph. The other four, because it's cross.
Sorry.
The assistant superintendents, they all play a role.
I got you.
But generally speaking, anything academic is Dr. Smith.
Okay. It might have been a loaded question. So when we talk about, for like the early literacy component, and I know that you talked about the state rule change. Do we anticipate improving or declining in early literacy? It was just kind of hard to, this was, and you said it, this was an overall presentation, but I was looking more for where we fit within that, so that we could say like, hey, this is us, this is what the state is looking for, so that we can direct people to,
Sure.
This is what we're projecting.
So for context, in the presentation, I did include our 24-25 data so that you can see where we fall within that, but we are still in the validation phases of this year. So this was kind of a primer to get you re-familiar with the components, and then we'll come back and talk about where we actually fall when the data is finalized.
So then how about I send you some of my questions, or send it to the superintendent, and she can send, because what I'm looking for is kind of like, for us, what are the targets and where we landed, and what are our targets based off of the report cards for understanding's sake? Because that's just for me. So maybe I'll just send them for for the SACAL. We have a SACAL plan. Because most of mine are, about the report card components and where should we put extra resources based off of what we see here, and the goals. And so that's what I was kind of thinking that our presentation was going to be on. So September-ish.
Mid-September is when the data will be final and public, and we'll get near final before that, but it's not final till it's final, so we don't really like to put it out there till it's out there.
Gotcha. Okay. Thank you.
All right. Other board members? Board Member Bolton.
Yes, thank you very much. I just hate the Ohio report card, and I have for any number of years. But what I do understand, it is the comparative analysis that the general population sees. So I've been pleased having sat on this board for some time, and a number of different superintendents and teams, I've been pleased that you all have kind of, what do they call it, vivisection, so to speak? I mean, dissected the report card and assigned responsibility based upon the way that you have broken it down. About 3 months ago, I think you had a presentation about the report card, or how you guys were getting a whole bunch of people together from various avenues within the district to actually sit and talk about the report
this
card
whole
in
past-
anticipation.
Yes, this whole past year, Ms. Vargo has been working with our principals to help make sure they understand all of these components, where their individual schools land within the components, and what are the steps that can be taken to show some movement. So we
Yeah.
did that all last school year.
And do you think that that increased knowledge, I mean, have we seen that that has produced not just a greater awareness, but at least more of a focus at the school level? Because for the report card, my preoccupation is at the school site. I list every school, I do the whole star thing here and star thing there. I've even got my way of evaluating it based upon everything has the same weight, which, by the way, is kind of interesting when everything has the same weight instead of the way they weight things to count more. And many of those things that they weight more hurt our kids most particularly, because obviously this report card is written for the other 600 school districts, not necessarily the urbans. So can you express how that has improved, maybe the focus this past year on the report card at the school level? I mean,
I think to the administration's credit, like, they've created space and place so that that is the focus in a lot of the principal meetings and the principal PDs. And so we've been able to really train up folks on data literacy. We have a full report card simulator where they can put in their benchmark data and actually see what the report card measures would be. Now, we can't do it for everything. Progress is very difficult, but even that, we come up with a sort of methodology to predict. So I have been, I'm kind of like a little proud little mama when I hear the principals talk about the report card components, because the data literacy has increased so much to the point where, even the accountability rules for the state, all of that comes out of a focus, our SIS. And so that means that at the school level, they have to be putting kids in correctly. They have to be making sure that when those kids go up to the state, that their data is going to be accepted. It's not going to error out because some of the data is not right. Enrollment dates are correct. Those pieces have gotten so much stronger as schools understand it better and understand the impact better. And so it's not just principals, it's,
everybody.
Senior support specialists get a lot of training on it. I obviously have a very biased lens to it, right? But I do think that it really has been a focus. I don't know.
I appreciate that. Did you?
I was only going to say, even as simple as the number of students who may be untested, let's say you were absent from school a particular day, having principals and staff understand the impact that has and the need to ensure that those students have an opportunity to test. I think there's a shift even with that piece.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And I do want to put in a plug for Cincinnati Public Schools and the OSBA, especially the urban network part of OSBA. We were very, 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 very impactful, influential in moving off of the grades and at least moving to the stars. And I think that that can't be underestimated to the importance, even in the dialogue, or even saying things like, somebody will say something's a failing school instead of a school is a lowly rated school or tested school, whatever. We have to really watch the vocabulary whenever we're talking about the report card. And one last question, was this the first year about preparedness for college, career, and military, or was
So
it the second year?
24-25 was the first year it was rated. It actually got stars. It was reported a year or two before that.
It didn't count.
but it didn't count, it didn't get a star rating. 24, 25 was the first year it got stars, so this will be the second year on the report card that's coming out, that it will have a star
And in
rating.
that category, we did the 3 this
We were
past
3
year.
in 24, 25, yeah.
Great, I appreciate it, thank you.
Board Member Matt.
Just a quick question, and I think it, to some degree, was already asked, but Superintendent Murphy, can you expound on, I guess, how this will correlate to the new network model that you have established? So I know that you said, or that I heard you say that Dr. Smith is still over all things academics, right? And we do have a new curriculum director. So can you expound on how like the new network model will correspond with us accomplishing the different ratings on the state report card?
Absolutely. So the new curriculum director does report to Dr. Smith, first of all. Secondly, we see the network model as being a tool to help us get supports quicker to each individual school, to each individual classroom, and that there is greater accountability because there is a faster opportunity to be able to provide those supports. We do see this as a model that people are going to be coming together on Fridays to talk about what they saw the previous week, what needs to be done to move this school forward or an individual classroom forward if and when we see gaps. It's also the place where we identify whether the materials are being used in the classroom each and every day. I think I shared last year we had conversations around who is responsible for ensuring that happens. This model creates a space to ensure that that support is given to the teachers as needed so that it does happen.
Okay, thank you for that. And then, I guess, can you speak about how Ms. Wargo's work will help to make sure that those that's leading the work in the networks is supported? And there's that understanding of how to, in fact, accomplish different ratings, 3-star above, on the report card.
Yes, ma'am. So the reason we did this last year with principals is because we wanted to ensure every principal understood the components and understood where their school stood and understood the then what. What do we do about this so that we can move the needle? The same will happen to everyone who's participating in the network. Those Fridays will also provide the time where they're together to receive the professional development needed to help improve our outcomes.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
And again, trying to be a good steward of our time here. I appreciate the hard work here. I think what we will probably do is maybe in that September timeframe, we'll try and figure out, again, depending on when the state releases some stuff, an opportunity to come back with a little bit more information. And if it's times out perfectly right, which I am, from my skills today, recognizing that Zoom didn't time out perfectly right for our start of our meeting, probably won't. But if it does, we would probably want to have you come back and kind of just walk us through what those numbers mean and what those look like. Absolutely. I think the other thing I would want to note as we talk about the district and the opportunities to educate our teams, the folks who are working and then the networks who are working, this is a great opportunity for us as a district to also work hard to develop up their student achievement that will invariably measure towards our getting a higher report card. I mean, I think at the end of the day, the best way to get a higher report card score is for our students to achieve more in their education. And so,
correct.
The easy way to
work.
get the higher score is for our students to be able to demonstrate that they have learned more and been able to do more through those means. So appreciate you taking the time to walk us through this brief walkthrough. We had a few matters that were sent in as board matters, so definitely want to give folks time to ask those questions and also, again, get any questions or any answers that were placed. I believe the first one was for, let's see, I believe the first one is to Vice President Moffitt. I'm sorry, but Board Member Bolton, I'm trying to look at my script here and have like completely straight right past it. So the first one was Board Member Bolton with regards to board members' activities during a school levy.
Well, this now is relevant. Fortunately, I was clairvoyant. I think if we could, I think we do have to have General Counsel kind of give us just an overview of what for regarding our activities that are allowed and not allowed. I don't know that it has to be super specific, because I know he's got a memo ready for that and an earlier memo before. But that was my concern, if indeed we passed a levy at this meeting, that we would start off with General Counsel giving us the outline of what were the do's and don'ts, or at least your perspective of telling us how to behave.
Sure. Thanks. The general rule is that a school district CPS may not use its property or personnel to support or oppose any political candidate or ballot issue, and that would include a school levy that's on the ballot. This has been the subject of litigation in the past, but it's also a part of Ohio law. So the Ohio Revised Code says that no political subdivision shall use public funds to support or oppose a candidate for public office or for the passage of a levy or bond issue. The general rule is we don't use school district funds to campaign for a levy. Our employees, when they're on public time, when they're being paid, aren't paid to try to promote a school levy. And so that's the general rule. We do train our employees on that. We'll be talking to principals about it this week at the principals leadership meetings. Copy machines, the school newsletter, all those things are certainly opportunities to promote our schools and promote the activities in our schools. It's not an opportunity to specifically support the school levy. Glad to answer any questions on that.
As board members, and in board meetings, or when we are out and about meeting with the public, what are the restrictions on board members regarding talking about a levy? What are the restrictions?
So board members are not employees of the school district in the same way that the superintendent, treasurer, and I are. And so you don't lose your free speech rights. You certainly have the ability to promote whatever political causes and the school levy. The board members aren't restricted in that way. Employees may present information about CPS's finances and activities, but not in a manner that's designed to influence the outcome of an election. So we likely will be asked, we are routinely asked during levy campaigns to present information on the finances of the school district and the activities, how those funds are being spent, how they would be spent. That's all lawful, but we can't pay employees. You couldn't pay overtime to an employee to go out and solicit voters or sign postcards, or we can't use the funds of the district, public funds, to support the school levy.
Are the superintendent and the treasurer allowed to have town meetings?
They are allowed to present information, again, about the finances and activities of the school district. We are all allowed and encouraged to share that information. It can't be designed in a way to specifically promote this political levy.
Does that present a problem as we're trying to present our strategic plan once it gets adopted? I mean, we would be out, if I recall, as we've done before, after we adopt it, we do a bit of a community effort to explain the strategic plan and share it. That doesn't compromise us doing that?
No, not in terms of explaining and promoting the activities of the school district.
Okay,
Other questions?
thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, General Counsel. I think now that I'm back on my script and reading correctly, none of this is ever Ms. Davis's fault. This is my fault for not reading correctly. I just want to make that clear. The next on our agenda is from Vice President Moffitt with regards to the Fairview data, and I believe this is like discipline data, a request for some of the disciplinary data disaggregated that was made. But I would let Vice President Moffitt.
So I clarified it, and I just wasn't sure if we had updated information.
So, Dr. Moffitt, I did get the data from Ms. House during this meeting. Would it be acceptable for me to send it to you tomorrow?
Sure. I just so that it's on record, I brought the copy of the presentation, but the data I was requesting was in the same format that was presented to Fairview's LSDMC. It's a discipline data review that is, I'm assuming, provided to all schools, their LSDMC. This particular one was the May 2026. It showed enrollment, their gender, ethnicity, month, grade, location, and then offense and consequence. And so those were the sections that I was looking for. That's the disaggregated data. I was looking for that over time, not necessarily just total number of offenses or referrals, but I wanted that information in those particular categories so that we could look at that over time, which is data that we do keep, and it is, it's not anything special for the staff to do or as far as extra, but it is in reference specifically to information leading to concerns that they have brought forth to the board and the administration over time since May. So that was it. So hopefully I'll get that at the next, by the next meeting, considering it was an assignment. Thank you.
Alrighty. The next one on the list, just a Bramble enrollment update from.
I had that question because we had received a report, I think an update around the Montessori program being implemented, the Montessori certification teacher training program being rolled out, and that's a great thing. But it also shared that we had 160 students enrolled at Bramble. So I know that we haven't had an update on Bramble and how that enrollment is going. To me, I know that capacity is a little higher than that. So I'd like to get, I'd asked for a specific update around Bramble's enrollment. We did talk about the certification program that's there, and I think that's great. But we also, I asked specifically, is the enrollment open to the entire district now? I know at one point in time it was not. It was closed because that particular campus is from Xavier, the Xavier University Montessori programming. So it was kind of closed, and I didn't know if it was open up to everybody. I kind of wanted a little bit more information than something verbal. So again, I'm happy to move that to a student achievement meeting where we can get a formalized presentation. I asked about the Montessori certification program because that is significantly cheaper than what we were paying for Xavier. And we were waiting on the MOU from CFT so that we could get some sort of guarantee that those participants would be able to stay, and I think we have that. But I was also very curious around getting an update on the enrollment there and the progression of that particular campus. And I had seen where there were 160 students and was hoping that we could get some update. It's been 2 years now?
1 year.
1 year?
We opened it last year.
So this is the second year? Okay, so I think we could kind of get an update on how that's faring, enrollment, capacity, all of that, as we look towards moving forward. So I'm happy to put that on a SACAL, which we have one coming up, but that was the request a few weeks ago.
And we are enrolling district-wide. We do have the MOU agreement about the training program with the Federation. Customer Care Center is continuing to enroll even in these days. So we can provide not only an enrollment update for Bramble, but for the whole district if you like.
Okay, I was really just kind of asking about Bramble because I had a parent ask if they could enroll there, and I did, at one point in time, we were not accepting enrollments because they were wanting to transfer from Sands there, I think, when they first opened, and we were not. And so another parent, who was a Montessori parent, was moving in that area and asked, and I said, I really don't know, and did not know what the capacity was. And so thought maybe this would be time, since we had not had updated information, if we could get that too. So next meeting is fine, or the Student Achievement Committee meeting is great too. But that was what that was for. And did President Craig come in? Okay.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Yeah, just a follow-up on the Bramble piece and the capacity piece. I do think we need to revisit as the school year starts, and as we know enrollment for sure as the school year starts, a kind of a revisit along the way regarding capacity per building. For example, with Bramble, you know, it has, at least in this particular chart, Bramble has enrollment of, at this time, 163, but again, it's the capacity is only 250 as a small building. So its capacity is like 68%, but when you get to something like Frederick Douglass, and it's 48%. So I think we need to look at I think we have to look at the capacity picture as well as the enrollment picture. So it wouldn't be bad to revisit that after the school year gets underway, and we can revisit, not for the purpose of consolidation or anything, but for the purpose of having an understanding of prioritizing the facilities and where our kids are. But yeah, Bramble only has capacity for 250. It was baby school.
And we did not make Bramble a magnet school, correct? Is it not a magnet?
Well,
I know
it's a
Montessori. Is it
Montessori, so
neighborhood?
yes. So, and also, Mr. Badger just shared their enrollment as of today is 202.
Well, that's good. That's different than what it was last month, so that's great. Is it a magnet, or is it just a neighborhood?
It is a magnet school.
Because we talked about that, and again, I think it's time we get an update, because we talked about that in relation to transportation. And we talked about when we opened that, not to make that a magnet with transportation. So I'm just kind of curious as to when that changed and if those students are getting transportation, because that was not how we talked about that initially.
So we did not add transportation.
Okay, good.
Yes.
Well, I just know the discussion when we first opened it was to not make it a magnet. It was not a magnet, and maybe that's in part why other students weren't allowed to attend, because it was just kind of its own insulated school. But we haven't had an update on Bramble or any changes, and I don't remember an update on when it changed to a magnet, because technically magnet schools are allotted transportation. And when you bring up Taft Elementary, we intentionally took their magnet status away, which also took their transportation away. So I would like some further discussion around that, because I don't know when the board decided to make that a magnet. And then if we do make it a magnet, we also need to talk about their transportation too. So I think it's just time for an update. We need to get a little bit further information. I think some decisions may have been made and we just didn't run them past everybody. But I'm glad that the enrollment is up. It's over 200. Hopefully it stays there and we are able to get some students there. But I'm looking forward to the presentation coming up in the next few weeks. That'd be great.
All righty. The last thing on our board matters goes back to Vice President Moffitt.
It's me again. So I just wanted to talk about the changes to CPS travel and reimbursement process, specifically for board members. As the public may know, our salary, this robust salary that we get, that people have sent in messages saying that we should cut, is by state law $5,000 a year. And that gives us some small amount of money that includes the ability to go and travel to conferences. And so we have not historically, as General Counsel just mentioned, board members have not been considered staff. And so we've always had our travel done somewhat differently, albeit similar, but differently, and it was not on a reimbursement basis. It was on, our staff did the PO, and we were able to get our allotment of things non-reimbursement. And so President Craig sent a memo out saying, hey, we're on the reimbursement. And so I thought maybe we could all talk about that as a board and come to that decision together, because we have not been treated historically like staff. In fact, technically, by the state, we're not staff. So just wanted to have that discussion more formally. I only usually travel once a year and don't really want to have to come out of my pocket, my nice hefty salary, to have to be reimbursed, so.
Sure. And just for clarity, we as a district voted, actually, we as a board voted to move to the per diem reimbursements, in large part because of the difficulties it is in tracking, because we had literally one person tracking every receipt that people used and spent, and had to manage that as far as the account, as far as what was spent on our accounts. Now, there are dollars that we are allocated for travel and for professional development as a board are dollars of the district. So it's not come out of our funds that are paid to us. These are dollars that are allocated out of the district, of the budget for the board. And so, again, in alignment with what was being done as a practice for the entire district, and in a way, this also gives us a little bit of consistency as a district, because if we're doing something very different from what everyone else is doing, I don't know that necessarily gives the right image, especially given a lot of our staff throughout the district and our teachers throughout the district can't travel at all. We've basically taken all the dollars away from their ability to travel whatsoever for district travel outside of places you can drive to than a short distance. And so this was just to align with the practice. I mean, the entire set of things that were being done are aligned with the FAQs and the things that were already aligned out of the treasurer's office for that. I don't know if Treasurer Augustine wants to correct me on any of that aspect of it. But I thought this was, again, trying to make sure that we are not aligning ourselves outside of the things that we've already said for others they were required to do now. But again, if the will of the board is to do something different, happy to entertain that discussion and the consideration. So we'll open it up to anyone else who has thoughts on this. Board Member Mapp.
My only thoughts, so I do recall us approving it, through policy and as a full board. I think my only thought, and maybe I just wasn't clear about it, I recall the per diem part, but I guess I just did not recall the reimbursement. So that may be my own lack of understanding at that time. But I also understand and agree with both perspectives. I think it's fair. But whatever the will of the board is, I'm okay with whatever we decide.
Other board members' thoughts?
And for the record, I'm not suggesting that we don't have the per diem. We have always been, we don't have the P cards. We have the different, slightly different system, but we've always brought our receipts back and submitted them to one of our board admin, and all of that has been handled. And so we've always been a little slightly different in that respect. That's the only thing. It's not been a reimbursement. I'm not suggesting that we do anything else different. I like the per diem idea. It was just the reimbursement piece that would have been different for us. And that I think essentially the per diem and the reimbursement is the different piece for the staff, because the per diem is a little bit easier than submission of a whole bunch of different receipts and speaking with the treasurer. But that was the only piece that I was wanting to not have to do, was that I wanted us to continue to do it the way we've been doing it. Nothing extra, just the way we've been doing it.
Again, the way we've been doing it would have no per diem or reimbursements. So now, again, well, I shouldn't say that, because we did have reimbursements. If you use your own card to pay for things, you could be reimbursed. Folks were reimbursed for covering things where we did not have your access to your card and you used it or for other purposes while traveling. If you paid your own registration by some happenstance and then the district covered it later, I think you could have, there's theories of things you could have put in for a reimbursement for. Again, still would have required a receipt. If the board wants to operate outside of what the other folks are operating, that's the will of the board. I'm not here to necessarily dictate what that will be. I just The only thing I did was put out the memo to align ours with what the district was doing as a whole. But again, if folks would like to do something different, that is something we can discuss. Board Member Armbruster.
I would just say, I think it's a show of respect to the lovely employees of this district to align ourselves to that policy. I don't see any reason not to.
Other board members, thoughts on it? Okay.
Sure.
The one other, the one other piece of information I will share is that the reimbursement pay schedule is different from like your paycheck pay schedule kind of idea. So from what I understand, and again, Treasurer Gusman, please definitely correct me because I don't want to be completely wrong on this, but those are paid on a more regular basis than every other week pay week, right?
Yeah, so, as you mentioned, we switched district employees to a per diem reimbursement last year, starting around February of last year. Yeah, I think people appreciate the flexibility of not having to keep every receipt, turn it in, make sure it was itemized. You know, we had a person going through line by line for every receipt. You know, we decided we didn't want to be the food police, but to answer your specific question, you know, those reimbursements are paid through our accounts payable check runs. We do those once a week on Thursdays. So if receipts are in, you know, it's a quick review and then you can get paid, you know, pretty quickly afterwards.
Board Member Bolden?
I just want to add real quickly for the sake of the public that, as the Vice President mentioned, by law, we can't earn any more than $5,000 in a year. And we each may have a credit card, but we can only use our credit card when we are traveling on behalf of the school board and the district. And that, we can only do that if it's been an assignment by the board. So I don't want anybody to think that we're walking around and we have some sort of all kinds of opportunities. I remember this clearly the first week or so I was on the board, and I had this credit card, and I thought it was like, you know, I was supposed to be able to use it. So I had taken, I think I went to Frisch's in Hartwell, and I had a meeting literally at Frisch's in Hartwell with 4 people in the school district that were part of a committee that we had created. And I made the mistake of submitting my Frisch's meal, only mine, and I was told very quickly by one of our staff members, "Oh, no." "Were you specifically assigned by a public vote by the board, young lady?" And that's when I was younger. And I'm telling you, we don't have anything to spend. Unless we're traveling on behalf of the board and we've got a specific assignment, and there are 2 staff people that take care of 7 school board members. So this is a pretty small operations. I just wanted to clear that up.
Yeah.
No expense account here.
I will say, I think if Ms. Bruckner is not home yet, because theoretically she should be headed home already, but there have been many board members through the years who have had Ms. Bruckner stop by to say, so when you cutting that check for the thing that you weren't supposed to use your card on, but to that point, yeah. But again, if the board would like to do something different, open to it, I think maybe what we can do is we'll share some feedback through our administrators. We'll figure out some way to do that, and I'll talk with folks later about that. But otherwise, you know, we'll kind of revisit that then. Any other board matters, assignments? No? Okay, see, yeah, no, yeah, okay.
Well, I mean, we do have the levy on the ballot, but I'm wondering, is it prudent to to our point of collaboration with the city and the county and the other entities, should we make some sort of directive to work together on a committee? You know, I don't know, I'm just asking if we should formalize that. I don't know.
Yeah, and I guess what I would say is I would certainly give it to myself, but also to open up some conversations with the county and the city to get us something that's a more collaborative relationship as we go forward. I think one of the other things I was thinking about in this, beyond just a levy conversation, is there are actually a lot of services that the county provides that our students and families benefit from. There's a lot of resources and services the city can open up. I know while we have some of the relationships with the rec centers, there's actually even, you know, their number one hiring source every summer should be our students. Right, like that should be, if we don't have enough job fairs to host, we can host more kind of thing. I think there's ways we can also look at some of the collaborative things about understanding where the direction of the city demographic changes are going to go to. I mean, there's a lot of stuff we can do that is more collaborative within the county and the other municipalities that are part of our district. I just don't think we've ever brought everybody to the table to sit down and have that conversation in a productive way. And so I'm happy to maybe start it, but that board members will always be a part of those discussions.
Yeah,
I think you
just
should
know
make
that-
it an assignment.
Well, I was thinking about that because I know Commissioner Dreehouse said that we've all talked in silos, but that there's never been formalization of, hey, that the county does this and CPS could benefit, or the city. So I'm wondering if we should formalize that. And I don't even really know if that's the assignment to us or is it the assignment to whom? But-
So if folks are okay with it, I will take it as an assignment to myself to bring back something to the board for which we can then say, as we go forward, how we want to be a part of and how we might be able to do some of the collaboration. And again, I think what our goal should be in that is really to find as many ways as we can work together and with as many people who want to work with the district as possible.
Absolutely.
Because I think if we invite everybody to the stage and everybody to the table, that creates a more inclusive conversation.
May I add to your assignment, Mr.
Sure.
President?
It's not friendly, it's not friendly.
That, yes, absolutely take the point on it, but also it would be great to almost have sort of a little bit of an inventory or a list of what we do now, because I'm not sure we all know. For example, even the recreation piece, the hiring and whatever, they're doing a great job hiring our kids. It's the number one hire, actually, of our kids. But even it's like the Recreation Commission, their facilities master plan is a 6-year plan that actually dovetails. So if we could, if I could add that to your
Absolutely.
assignment, sir.
Absolutely. And again, I
you.
think that's a good example of areas where we have collaborated, but we can collaborate more. We have had opportunities, but we can have more. And I know there's a bunch of those different examples of, whether, like I know doing my role on the Addiction Response Coalition, like there are so many ways that we could be doing, that they are already working with us, but there are ways they're looking for more ways to work with us as we go forward, so.
I have a question.
Yes.
With regard to levy partnerships and discussions, General Counsel Hoying, would it be appropriate to have like some of our lead agencies and things like that to promote the levy, or that's not permitted?
You know, Dan's fresh off his international travels there, so he's got a little giddy up in his step.
There's no restrictions that would apply from the Ohio Revised Code. Some nonprofit organizations have their own restrictions on what they can and can't do to maintain their nonprofit status and everything else, but certainly they have their own ability to support the levy, depending on the organization.
I know they typically have like a candidate type of, you know, a political
That's
or
right.
a partisan
That's right.
Piece, but I'm wondering, would that be a conflict of interest for them if they are a vendor and then they are promoting us?
You know, we've had vendors that have been very supportive of school levies in the past. That's again, their own restrictions, whatever they may or may not have in terms of, but that's not governed by CPS and, yeah.
And then we would be able to list them on any of our flyers and materials? like as, you know, hey, it's supported by or partners of, and I'm specifically talking about, like, the county had partners that have supported their levy, and they have a list of them that go out on emails and other, so I'm wondering, are we permitted to do those sorts of things?
Again, the district wouldn't be itself
Yeah, I guess it would be.
organizing that campaign literature or committee or anything. That all has to be done separate
Separate,
from
but-
CPS. That's
Okay,
right.
I got you. Okay, thank you. I'm done.
All righty. Consent agenda has been distributed with one correction. I think the Budget, Finance, and Growth Committee minutes were not yet ready, but they'll be on the next meeting's minutes. So do I have a motion to accept the amended consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
All righty. I should have said, any exceptions?
Yes, I would just like to abstain from the treasurer's report.
All righty. Treasurer Guston, do your thing.
Sorry, just catching up. Okay. Ms. Armbruster,
Yes.
Ms. Bolton,
Yes.
Mr. Crossett.
Yes.
Ms. Mapp,
Yes.
Vice President Moffett,
Yes.
President Craig.
Yes. All righty. The only last bit of business I will say to folks is that we have a lot of back-to-school events coming up next week or two. Please come out, support our schools, support our students, get folks enrolled. Let's get a good start to the year. Back-to-school event this Saturday, and then I think the back-to-school address is the 14th. 14th, yes. All righty. If no further business, I'll take a motion in a second to
So moved.
adjourn.